Hello and welcome to episode 265 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 5th of December 2012. 2012?
Time warp.
Of all the years.
My name is Chris Thurston and it's...
How old are you, Chris Thurston?
I'm 25, Alex. I'm 25, I've just joined the games industry.
Everything's great.
I've been working at PC Gamer for a little bit and they've just let me go on my first big press trip. I'm going to Blizzard to see Mists of Pandaria.
I'm thinking about getting into game development.
My friend Tom goes home after the pub after work every day to work on this game he's making. I hope it goes well for him because he's putting a lot of time that he could be at the pub into it. I live with Tom Senior.
He lives with me, everybody.
We eat pizza.
Sure do.
Some of these things are not obviously false today.
That's true.
To the listeners.
And I like to wave to Alex across the office.
Hi.
Hi.
I was still in the office at
It's
that
not.
point.
It's not 2012. I haven't done the podcast for 2 weeks, so I'm obviously forgotten.
That's the skill you lose.
It's 2018. It is 2018.
Soon to be 19, just to put the warning in now.
Right, yeah, put that fear right up you. As you now know, I am joined by, my name is Chris Thurston and I am joined by Tom Senior.
Hello.
Alex Wiltshire.
Hi.
And Tom Francis.
Hello.
Well, I guess something that none of us would have been able to imagine in 2012 would be a series of articles where what everyone write in, which is like, is it bad for Valve now? Is Steam bad now? Imagine, if you will, a competing internet computer games store.
Because there have been many little stores
It's not
popping
very
up
difficult
over
to
the
imagine.
years,
There's been
but
lots
none of them are really... We've got the new one has entered, a new challenger has entered the
Indeed.
stage.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Yeah.
So the news basically, and probably the only news that we'll really dig into, because at the time of recording this, Big Jeff's Ultimate Jefforama hasn't happened yet. So all of the game reveals for December are in your past, the listeners. But,
And we are happily ignorant.
We are very ignorant of them recording this as it is on a Wednesday. So what we will talk about is the Epic Games Store announcement and its consequences for the video games industry.
I'm really dying to know whether they had this announcement planned for the time they announced it or whether they brought it forwards, because it was beautifully timed, in that Valve had just recently announced, that they are changing their revenue cut, to reduce it for games that make over 10 million, or is it 5 million in the first tier? So to 25%, and then for 10 million down to 20%. So basically giving more of the money to the biggest players, like the ones who are already mega successful. They also get a bigger share of the revenue and give less to Valve. And Epic came out with their thing, and it's just 12% across the board to Epic. So their standard tier for everyone is less than Valve's most generous tier. And also Valve's announcement of that caused a huge backlash against them. Well, huge in my world, because all my friends are developers. Where they were pissed off that they felt like this was the rich getting richer, and indies who are struggling, who need a break like this, aren't getting it. Is Valve really earning their 30%, which is a conversation that hasn't been sort of front and center until recently. And then Epic announced their store.
It's like a big boot in the face. Meanwhile, there's been a little kind of, I've seen quite a lot of chat with a lot of indies saying that their store page visits have mysteriously gone down over the past month due to some sort of algorithm change, which has been explained today or maybe yesterday in terms of some sort of experiment with two systems that went like a bug that went wrong. But
the story got a bit misreported because some people have seen traffic to their store page go down since October. A lot of people saw traffic to their page dip in October, and that was a bug. Like the whole game similar to this box was just straight up broken for like a few days, and they fixed it. But when they fixed it, they also changed it a bit, because the thing that broke it was a change they were trying to make where things that sell better, I think, get a slightly preferential treatment. And the bug was that they made it only what's selling well, not at all what's relevant. And so, yeah, there's been a lasting change for some people. That part is not a bug. It was kind of reported as like, traffic's been been destroyed since October because of a bug, but actually it was only destroyed for a few days because of a bug. It's been intentionally destroyed for some games since then. And yeah, who the hell knows how the algorithm actually works or what it really does. But yeah, it certainly hasn't affected everybody.
But it's an interesting kind of landscape for Epic to come out into.
Yeah. And it was weird because like there's kind of rapturous reception to this without much discussion of exactly how it's going to work. And I read the interview with them, and it's going to be handpicked. It's invite only. They're just going to pick games to put on it. So a lot of the people who are very excited about it are not going to be on it, I don't think.
Did they give a sense of the sort of thing they're looking for? Are they looking for
no, not that
big
I saw.
sellers or kind of...
They did say they were open to like mods and free things and, beyond just commercial games.
It's interesting. And I think it's a very smart thing because you got to wonder with a situation that Epic find themselves in where, before Fortnite suddenly became the biggest thing in the world, they were shuttering games and it seemed like things were not dire, but like, they were certainly talking more about Paragon than Fortnite a little while ago. And then that tune changed very dramatically.
Yeah.
And even Fortnite was a failure in its initial form.
Yeah, it really was.
You know what I mean?
Incredibly shaky.
Like that's a hell of a sort of narrow played thing. And so what you play that money forwards into, what you grow the company into with a windfall like that is a good question. And this seems like a smart thing.
Yeah.
Well, particularly, so there are two things about it. Like, you've got the sort of data side. So they've been serving enormous client downloads, since Fortnite came out, since the Battle Royale side came out in their own client. So that's done. They can serve shitloads of data and there's a client that is already running on a lot of machines. So that's kind of that side. They also hired, and I only realized this today, that of course Sergey Gogolkin, who is Steam Spy, he's one of the Stalker developers way back. And he has run a website which you may or may not come across, but it was called Steam Spy, and it was pretty much the only way you could it basically went through sort of Steam store data to get approximated but pretty accurate sales data, and put them all up for everyone to see. It was closed down because Valve shut off the data source that it was using. But he knows a fuckload about how stores work, and he's very, very kind of experienced with the statistical side and of kind of serving store pages and what that means. So those two things for me kind of make me think this is properly serious. Like this is
I feel like I don't have maybe the problem same intensity, but because I was talking to a developer friend today who was very much on the camp of like, this is the biggest news in ages. And I've seen a lot of that sentiment on Twitter as well. And obviously it makes complete sense when people are being offered a better deal, deal on the use of the Unreal Engine if they also get sold in the store, all of these things that make sense. My overriding thought though is that it's very easy to get caught up in the dev side of it when the entire success of the system depends on it being a store people want to use.
Yeah.
And to be honest, despite the vast success of Fortnite, I don't necessarily think that install base automatically translates into a useful audience for a store, because the only thing is that you have the Fortnite audience there. That is an audience used to a free game, for one thing, that are predominantly quite young, that there are a lot of factors that make that X million people, and it's a lot of million people. I don't know exactly how many, please don't ask me how many, but that number is not as necessarily like, it is not exactly equivalent to Steam's user base, for example, simply off the bat.
I would say though that, that a big part of the success of these kind of things is where your friends are at. And for a lot of players, especially new players, their friends are on Fortnite.
Right.
So they've got the friends list power already active for a huge audience.
Yeah. And there's also the hardest thing I think about launching a Steam competitor is you kind of need some kind of app that's going to run on the person's computer in order to be able to auto-update stuff, because if it doesn't auto-update, it sucks. And the Epic have a better starting position than almost anyone else for that in terms of shitload of people have the Epic launcher.
We've probably all got you play on our machine, on our computers because you have to have it to run the game that you got off Steam. So you got both of them running, So like, that's how Ubisoft did that, but they only did it through piggybacking on on an existing store.
I think, go on, Tom.
I remember Tim Sweeney doing the interview rounds. He's talking about how something which I've heard from a CEO of another startup trying to offer a digital store that which I spoke to at Gamescom, and they both said exactly the same thing, which is the overheads for delivering the service that Steam delivers are much, much lower now than they were when Steam started, not purely in terms of technology and in, how people are learning to use it. And from that perspective, 30% is an extraordinary cut to take, given the amount of, upfront cash you have to put into the system itself.
I think I saw an estimate of something like 49 cents across the lifetime of the data cost for having something like a gigabyte or 500 megabyte game would be around 49 cents or something, assuming that someone's going to download it and delete it a couple of times, over the course of their purchase, while they have the game.
And that's fundamental truth that, the more that becomes public, the more you have to ask Valve, what am I getting from you for being on it for this 30% cut compared to this other store? Yeah. And I don't really look at this in terms of how we're going to translate the Fortnite audience into this shop. It's more like, why doesn't everyone just go to this shop in the next 10 years if Valve doesn't change?
So yeah, and I agree. But I think the way I think about it is, as painful as it might be for Valve to adjust the nozzle and the money hose, it's actually like, it's a short trip for them to a solution that makes this go away. Because moving to a new system, like generating banners in a different, like, resolution is a job literally no one in the world wants to do. No one wants to do that. They will do it for a reduction from a 30% to a 12%. But that reduction doesn't come out without risks, and that's point one, right? Like, if Steam continues to have very aggressive sales, and like one of the things that the other platforms like Battle.net, Origin, Uplay have never matched Steam for the aggressiveness of its sales, and those are very effective at keeping players in the ecosystem, because again, players don't give a shit what cut developers are making, really. The other side of it is, that like there's an overhead attached to moving, and if Valve say, okay, we hear you, we're cutting it down to 15% across the board now for everybody, maybe with further reductions, then it's actually kind of hard for Epic to respond, because then they've got to fight with, but
that's great for developers. I mean, suddenly you're just making
it's great.
So much more
Competition is great for developers.
Exactly,
but
right.
it's,
and you can
is,
see the appeal of, like, if at the moment Steam doesn't have to make its platform particularly better. It doesn't need to be more beautiful or more usable or sort of sit on your computer nicely. Like it doesn't, because there's no competition. They have the resources if they needed to turn around that reasonably quickly.
The thing I get from Steam as a developer that's well worth the 30% to me is they have something like 180 million users, and those are, unlike Fortnite's audience, unlike Minecraft's audience, unlike these other big wadges of hundreds of millions of people, they are the people specifically who go out and spend money on games every month. Like, there's just a crazy number of people on Steam who like to buy indie games, which is pretty much unique. Like, that doesn't really exist elsewhere. And as you say, Alex, like the thing about it's where your friends are. Steam have a very big entrenchment advantage there. And a lot of people who are excited about the Epic thing are not so much excited about being on the Epic store. They're excited about what Valve will do in response, and just hope that Steam gets better in response. But also the decision for most developers is not, do I move to this new thing? Because you don't have to. No one's asking you to be exclusive. So you put your thing on the new thing as well, and you see how it does. And if it ever becomes a viable alternative to Steam, then maybe you switch. But for the most part, people aren't asking third-party developers to do exclusives. But what's interesting is that everyone does their first-party things exclusive, right? Like Valve don't sell Half-Life 2 on Origin, for example. Right. And so those are like the only exceptions. Those are the only reasons that the end user actually would need to install a new client for. It'll be interesting to see how those shake out.
But if you're a developer and you're making such a big saving compared to Valve, why not drop the price of your game and still take a bigger cut and also undercut Steam sales? There's all sorts of interesting, incentives that a proper competitor brings to it. Like, you can, developers make more money, people get games for cheaper, Valve might fix the fact that voice chat still fucking sucks on Steam and, all the other niggling things that have just been with that service forever.
It'll be interesting to see what the effect is. Like, it just feels like there's so many things that could go wrong either way that because, I think you were right to point out again, audience that is used to buying indie games, for example, just because, when everyone's on, I suppose it could be something equivalent to when Xbox Live Arcade launched, and that helped propel that indie boom because people were hungry for something to buy on their Xbox.
Yeah, same as Switch, right?
Same as Switch, right? That, it could have a similar effect to that, where Fortnite almost becomes like a platform that people are on who just don't play games through any other channel. That's possible. But equally, it could simply be that, games struggle to get a critical mass because a very popular alternative, because it's your mates are there, but your mates are also playing Fortnite. So what is the incentive to buy this other thing? Because that's what you're there to do. You know what I mean? Obviously Steam was launched as basically a patching service for Counter-Strike, which was a big game at the time, but it wasn't quite the same thing. It was still sort of a hobbyist kind of, it started as a kind of means for, hobbyist sort of enthusiasts to get all of their things they were going to spend money on through one channel. I feel like the analogies don't quite match up. My guess is that it will drive Steam to be more competitive, but Steam's monopoly wouldn't be going anywhere. And that'll be ultimately good for developers, because it's obviously not easy for Valve to do, but it is ultimately they just change something about the proportion and suddenly Epic have far less to offer, I think.
One encouraging thing is that Epic have a good track record of, with Unreal Engine providing a service to developers and sticking with it and supporting it because it must have been I feel like early 2000s, half the games industry was on Unreal Engine, and that's true to a lesser extent today. Still shitloads of games use the Unreal Engine, and I've seen it in the last 5 years becoming more and more common amongst indies that they're using Unreal.
Am I right that if you're using the Unreal Engine, you get different terms?
Yeah, you get different terms with the Unreal Engine if you're selling on the Epic Store. So usually Unreal is free, but you have to give them 5% of your profits. And if you sell in the Epic Store, they just waive that. So you pay 12%.
That is
everyone else.
Pretty mega.
Yeah. So the Unreal Engine is free if you're going to sell only on it on the Epic Store, it'd be effectively free. If you're selling on both, obviously you pay the 5% out of your Steam sales, but not out of your Epic Store sales.
I just should point out though that that Tom's come out as pretty pro Steam.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. I thought it at the start of the podcast.
As soon as I took my jumper off.
He's wearing a t-shirt that says Steam Dev Day.
Look, what you guys don't understand about Valve. They're trying very hard and they really do offer excellent value. They gave me this one free t-shirt 3 years ago and got endless shilling from me ever since.
Well, that's, games journalism, the system works, right?
It's a really nice t-shirt. It's probably the best free t-shirt I've ever got.
Blizzard fed me a Panera Bad sandwich in 2012 and I've literally never criticised them. Oh, good. Do we have any more to say about the store wars?
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
The classic.
I think what we've established
games journalist ending line.
Some things might happen, or they won't. But if they do, they had.
They did.
Some interesting tidbits they've dropped already about how it all works. So there won't be forums, for example.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
It implies that it is. Yeah, and there's going to
less people say that.
Again, you should know that Tom had a faraway look of kind of despair in his eyes.
But since we was talking about a direct ticketing system for people who have problems or bugs with the game, instead of a forum, different ways of delivering feedback that don't generate just hate and pylons and that kind of thing. Though you did say that there probably be a review system, which is, has not been so great for various developers, depending on Steam, debatably.
Yeah. I think I agree with the need for that though. Cause that's, I suppose it depends how much they're going in the curation direction. Like they say, at first they're doing it invite only, and then they'll look at it, how they expand it out from there. So maybe it eventually becomes open platform. But if you do an open platform, you definitely need some kind of way for players to say, hey, this thing is literal garbage or a virus.
Does anyone got a sense of how Discord's been doing as a game store?
I'm too old.
It kind of opens up on the games tab, and I hurriedly click away from it. And there are games on it, there's some nice games like Bad North and things on it, but I just
That's the thing. That's what any competitor has to overcome, is that feeling of
I just chat to my friends.
Yeah, exactly. Incidentally, Tom, when you said that they want to do that without generating pylons, I just thought about StarCraft, and I can't unthink that now. Like, you don't have enough pylons.
Oh no. Add some forums.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, will it? It is, maybe.
There has been,
Or it might.
I mean, something has to change though. Like there's enough things going on that I think that sort of some kind of main change is happening, because you also have Bethesda pushing its own client.
Yeah.
Obviously EA long time broke away with Origin. You know, you can see what Steam was doing with its revenue share changes is about sort of making it a more attractive place for the big sellers.
Sure.
Because they must have really felt the results of EA leaving all that time ago. Like Bethesda's games must have been significant sellers on Steam over time, you know, and then suddenly the latest Fallout, well, you know, it doesn't matter that it's a bad game or whatever, but it's not on there. And what does that say about the next Elder Scrolls
you're
game?
right.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, there's chips and chips and chips, and now a dent, you know, all at the base of the Steam tree. And, you know,
That was a hell of a fucking
will
analogy.
they, I'm trying to think what
Dented the
analogy
Steam
to yeah, but yeah, I there's got to be a major reaction, but I don't know about the general sort of flow of forces around Steam, whether it's going to be able to.
Yeah, and I think with Valve particularly, because they're so enigmatic from the outside, there's a temptation to believe that there is a sort of grander plan for some of these things, right? Like, because, you know, we could get on to talking about it, but like, people have been joking this week that because Artifact got review bombed, maybe this will be the thing that makes Valve go, maybe review bombing is bad, and maybe our feedback system is bad.
Actually, that's bad, actually.
Like, and it's almost, but you know, then there's the sort of Galaxy Brain version of that where it's like, but what if this is how they prove review bombing is good? Because it doesn't affect them, for example. You know what I mean? That like, you know.
We just feel really comfortable in our beautiful offices, and we see nasty things written about us, and it doesn't hurt.
Nothing hurts. Like that.
That is,
yeah.
I wonder if that's, this interesting thing about Valve is that they don't really have like, figureheads associated with particular games, at least they try not to. And so there isn't, like, everyone reading the feedback is just seeing it in a very detached way of just like, okay, how do we solve this problem? Rather than a very personal way of like,
Yeah.
I'm sure like, I don't know if Ken Levine ever reads Steam user reviews of Bioshock, but it would probably sting if it's really, really negative because he is so,
It
like,
would
personally.
a lot of it would be pointed right at him.
Yeah, like, I mean, you know, the example that comes up is that Blizzard do it the opposite way. They put Jeff Kaplan at the front of Overwatch and Ben Brode at the front of Hearthstone. And then
he cries on film.
But then they have to spend real money, budget, for securing those people from attack in real life. Like, they have to buy security for those people because they've put them at the front of a video game, which is fucking stupid.
Yeah. What does that say about gamers?
Nothing good. But it justifies Valve's approach, which is like, you know, it is this sort of like diffusal technique where you're right. Like when abuse is directed directly at Valve game on Steam, it's directed at the game in sort of abstract on Steam rather than being in some developer's Twitter feed or, you know, even worse, you know, than being stalked or harassed in another context. So that does work and it maybe makes, but you know, there's some, I don't know what that means for like what the policy of a storefront should be. Do you construct a storefront knowing that individual developers will want to put themselves at the forefront of their games? And therefore you've got to build a storefront that protects them from abuse, because I would argue that's not a bad thing. Like, maybe do that. Or do you educate people that, unfortunately, the environment we live and work in is so hostile that you should not put yourself at the forefront of your game ever?
What's interesting is that, one of the last, like, prominent examples of a developer getting review bombed for something that, like, a particular person on the dev team did was Camposanto. And Valve have hired Camposanto. So, with like, Valley of Gods.
Harassment expertise.
It's going to be interesting because, I mean, that was something I wondered when they got hired is like, do they have to all shut up now? Because a bunch of people on that team are very outspoken on Twitter. I didn't know if Valve like had a policy against that because so few Valve employees are. And it doesn't seem to have like, changed their, outlook. I know Jane Ing talks a lot on Twitter, both about like the same issues you used to talk about, but also specifically about what it's like working at Valve, and a lot of insight that I feel like we haven't really had before.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of thing came up recently with, I don't want to get into the details, but there's been an ongoing situation in the Dota community about a player's racist remarks and how that was going to get handled. And Valve eventually did have to step in and formally kind of ban that player and punish the team, but it was only after the team failed to act, and they made this very clear. And it was, that, I think it's only in the context of Dota situations that I've seen you get the sort of the particular response from Valve where it's an anonymous, blog post, but written with quite a distinctive voice, which is usually a we, but it sounds like a particular person. It's like the sort of like, it's a very, like, and sometimes you can guess who, but it's sort of, there's a sense of like, there is a sort of, a direct action being taken, but you won't know quite where it comes from. And the broader policy that stems from that isn't quite obvious. So it feels like there's still an attempt to like anonymize their actions, even as the action itself is clearly, reactive and to some extent idiosyncratic or subjective. There's still that sort of desire to anonymize it and push it down and companify it. That's not a word, but I said it.
In the Dota community, do people talk about Ice Frog as being like,
Ice Frog's so people tend to talk about Ice Frog and Gabe. Like Valve don't really exist. Right. Like if you, in the minds of the Dota community, the Dota team is Ice Frog and Gabe.
A dynamic duo.
Like, and well, occasionally other people would sort of surface and become, would be visible to the Dota community, but really every decision is one of those two people. Like weird balance change, Ice Frog. Christmas hats don't happen again. That was Gabe Newell. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
But I guess he is so enigmatic anyway that is
kind of inherently kind of shielded.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe that's the ideal format of a developer.
Just take on some sort of alter ego.
Yeah, we would like you to stick to your Naughty's forum pseudonym, and under no circumstances reveal your actual identity.
But that's what those superheroes was all about, wasn't it? Protecting their families and stuff. Or like
indeed.
Angry gamers.
What's our new developer superhero? Noob Lord 55, a man who was forced to retain his first username for his entire life and may never change it. It's for his own safety and the safety of his family.
Discover your game developer name. It's just your Neopet's name. That's it. That's it.
Maybe there is something in this. Like, it's sort of, there are all these problems with kind of proving who you are online. Everybody has one identity. You fuck around,
that's it.
Poisons everything.
Well,
bank account, the fucking lot.
Yeah, so what you're saying, Alex, is the solution is more big data.
Yeah.
Like just a single login for everything. Voting.
Big blobs of data.
Just one massive, if we have these different blobs of people, which we were talking about earlier in different places, Fortnite, Steam, Minecraft. What if it's just one big blob, man? Yeah. One big blob called Earth.
Isn't it though?
It is. Is it? Will it? We don't know.
Chris?
Yeah.
What's perhaps been happening in the Artifact?
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned as you came, I wasn't aware of this, but you mentioned that it's been struggling, that Artifact.
Well, I don't know whether it's an official thing, but I looked at Steam charts for it, which is the kind of current player count, and seems to have be under half of the first day's player count, and successive days just going on down at the moment. I mean, obviously that's a fairly normal thing for a new game that, the first day is big and then it goes down, but I don't know. What does it feel like from the inside? Well,
so it's hard to judge because I, like it a lot and I'm hugely biased, and so therefore I shouldn't be trusted. The other side of it is that I did start playing it in a circumstance where there were literally 300 people playing it in the world, and I would just leave it on until it found a game, which might take 20 minutes. So the fact that I now get a game immediately is like, it's fixed now. And that has been my broader experience of it. I feel like the furore that we talked about last time, and I hope I was fair last time when I talked about the problems and the weird way that Artifact feels. And I said at the time that I wanted to reassess it when the whole store was there and you could buy and sell cards and things.
Oh yeah, we read a prepared statement from you on last week's podcast.
Did I prepare a statement?
The thing you said in the Discord.
Yeah.
You sort of chimed in on it because you weren't going to be on the pod. And
Oh, yeah,
we specifically got a question about artifacts like monetization, so it felt
We channeled you.
What
did
did
a
I
voice
say?
and everything.
Shit, now I've got to remember.
basically that it was not that expensive to buy all the uncommon cards or something.
Yeah, so I bought...
I think you put cheap fucks on the end, I think.
Yeah, I did, yeah. Get good.
If you're not a peasant.
Did you include my broader meditation on how I'm from a generation that would probably rather spend money rather than time, and we're facing a legion of teenagers that would rather spend time than money?
I don't think so.
Then let's not get into that.
Yeah.
But it's true, though.
We thought you might, that would be a bad
Yeah,
idea.
it's true, though. That's definitely a thing. I think, I should maybe get into that in a minute. Basically, my experience of it as someone who has some disposable income and loves the game design-wise. I've talked about why I love the game design-wise. I don't want to get back into the weeds on that. In fact, I'd be more interested to hear from you guys, honestly. But, like, as soon as that store opened, I found that I was actually, because I bought, like, a couple of packs and things. I put the money down for a full game, so I put 40 quid down. I realized that having sold all of my, valuable duplicates, I'd gained enough money to buy every common and uncommon card I was missing, and most of the rares, apart from the very spikiest rares that cost the most, and I had a lot of them already. So I was in a good position. I was in a position where I could build most of the decks I wanted to play, and also I had so many cards left over, just the kind of relatively worthless commons, to recycle into event tickets that I'll never have to pay for expert mode tickets ever again. So I felt suddenly much lighter with it. I still think it could be tweaked, but I felt suddenly much more generous. Like I can play all of the things I want to do in that game now without having to ever really go near the spend money buttons, which is maybe how most games should work after you've bought them. But it was definitely, it made me feel a lot lighter, and actually it meant that I could sort of perceive earning back some of that value. Like I just did my first ever flawless run through Expert Constructed, which is when you build the deck based on sharing packs with lots of other people. And it felt really good. And I earned 2 packs for it, and I opened them, and I didn't need any of the cards, but I got a couple of rares that I sold for a couple of quid. And that allowed me to buy another pack. And so it sort of like spiraled in a kind of neat way. And it was kind of gratifying, and that was good.
Does the money just go straight to your Steam wallet?
Yeah.
Right.
Immediately. It's the interface. And actually that's the other thing, is I think they've done a really good job with that interface. I think they could have made, if that process of selling and trading, or not, you can't trade, but selling and buying cards was oblique or fiddly. Like, I've just gotten locked out of it again because I didn't change my credit card information, but like, I moved between 2 payment methods that are saved or something, and that's enough to lock you out of spending money in the Steam Pocket. It's so sensitive for like 3 days. So I've got to wait till Thursday before I can, sell more cards, whatever. But basically, there's just an interface for it, and it's got lots of really good filters. It's the same as in the deck construction interface, but you can also filter by excess. And if you have the excess filter on, it will never let you, get rid of more cards than, because you only ever need 1 of every hero and 3 of every other card, because that's the limit on deck building. So if you have 7 copies of a card, if you have that particular flag ticked, it will never let you add more than 4 to the basket for getting rid of them, basically. And that creates this kind of comfort, like the measure of the system's success, I think, is whether or not you can quickly at a glance kind of go through and get rid of all the things you don't want. It's almost like good inventory management in any other video game context, right? Like it's really obvious what you want to keep. It's really obvious what you don't. And you scroll down and it automatically updates market prices for you as next to the card. So it's like, here's this card. Most of them settle at 2 pence because that is the minimum value they can have based on the price of a ticket and the recycling value. And I think it's probably close to the minimum you could actually sell something for in the Steam market. And so when I want to sell stuff, I just go down and everything that's worth more than 2 pence, basically, because at that point it's worth selling rather than recycling. Just add it to a big basket, and then you click sell this basket. And then when it loads up the window to sell them, it'll then update the market rates again. So sometimes it'll tell you if they've gone up or down in the second since you did this. And then you click sell and they all just go like dunk, 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 dunk. And then you get one of the most dangerous XP bars in the world, which is watching in the Steam window your money go up in real time. Because they don't all sell immediately, because it creates a sell order at the current like competitive rate. And you can change those rates if you want, but it will automatically match you to the highest available sell order, unless that changes in the moment between you clicking it and something else. And then if you want to just say, but no, I actually I want 20 quid for this card, that's probably not going to happen, but you can put that in instead. And then as things sell, your money updates in real time. And you watch that for a bit, and you're like, I'm leveling up, but in the way that,
Matters.
Yeah, exactly. In the way that matters. But it doesn't matter because it's Steam bucks and all I'm going to use it for is video games anyway. But like, it is well implemented, and buying stuff is good as well because you can create a sell order. Like, I want to buy the card at this rate, or you can just see what the current market price is. And that's, if something is, you can even, if you load the way the API works, if I sent you a URL to my deck, which you can export a URL from the game, you can then load it in the game and it will tell you how much it would cost you at the current market rate for every missing card it would cost you to build that deck right now. That I actually quite like. And now that the system works as it does, I feel like it's better than kind of grind for card packs, disassemble unwanted rares into dust, make Hearthstone, is what I'm saying. In short, simply because, but this is precisely because I would rather spend money than time. If someone says this legendary, this rare heavy deck is really fun, I can literally load it up and go, oh, that's going to cost me £3. Is it worth £3 to me to do this? Rather than, I'd like to play this in Hearthstone. Is that worth 2 months of grinding, spending loads and loads of money on card packs and hoping to, get enough average dust on average that I can craft the things I need, all these kind of oblique time and money sink systems? I would literally rather you just show me the cost of the thing. But that is me. And I think it's been really interesting that there is so much animus reserved for the absence of the ability to grind for stuff. Like for me, not having daily login bonuses that you feel anxious for missing, not having timers and energy bars and all that stuff is a bonus. I'd rather the transaction be obvious. But there's clearly a younger audience, and I'm talking like a decade or 2 decades younger than me, for whom that games have always been the case, and that has always been the case, and the absence of that is a slight, which is really interesting because
also they don't have any money, like they don't have your ready cash, which I think is I think it's important. I would like, because I'm even older, I would like them to feel, well, this is too expensive. I can't play that then, but I'll save up for it. Oh, that's the attitude I'd like them to have. Like,
right, yeah.
But it's significant that they don't have the money just to sort of go £3 on that. And a sense of value where £3 in the context of a sort of microtransaction, like an immediate pay thing in a game is feels like a brick wall.
Yeah, I get that.
In the way that it doesn't in a
It's funny, like, cause I don't disagree with that. And I think it's a reasonable point, but it's interesting how expectations have changed.
Yeah.
Because you can very easily spend £3 on, like, the nice thing about it is if you don't want to open any packs at all beyond your initial investment, you can at a glance see the cost of everything in the game. So there is none of that, like, oh, maybe I should invest £20 in card packs and just see what I get. If you want to, that I understand as a concern about that as a gambling mechanism, because it certainly is in all collectible card games. And Magic the Gathering is certainly a very, very expensive hobby, but this makes it clear in a way. Like it does, ultimately, like, buying. Sorry, go on, Tom.
How many cards are there?
About 300, I think.
Okay. So like, how much do you think it would cost you if you wanted to buy them all?
I think it's about $200, I think, if there's someone figured it out, like on average, because like the price differential is like Axe, who's the hero that is currently the rarest card in the game. It goes for about between 12 to 20 quid, depending on time of day, how many of them are in the market. It fluctuates, but if you wait, you would get it for between 10, 12 quid, I reckon. And then then the next most expensive things float around like 3, 4, 5 quid. And then literally 98% of everything else is between 30p and 2 pence. So you get, there's a big difference in buying everything from, you can get most things probably within a relatively modest investment. And then there's just a few remaining bits to grab.
What's happened to the prices? Because it's a market. Have they stayed pretty steady?
It's felt steady. It fluctuated a lot at first, and then it seemed to sink a lot. Like, I think as more stuff became available, like, certainly when the market opened, because Axe has been such an anomaly. Like, Axe was 30 quid and has settled around 10. So, like 10 to 15. When the market opened, I had a spare Legion commander who's an uncommon card, but a very powerful hero, that I sold for like £1.70, I think. And she's reliably available for like 30 to 50p now. So it seems to have shot down, and I doubt that'll change. Ironically, the thing that might change it is if people stop buying card packs and it pushes rarity up for people who don't have them. But that will probably keep people buying card packs because then the value of the card packs is more. So that's the magic of capitalism, everybody. It's gambling. But nonetheless, it seems to balanced out quite. I feel like when I'm apologizing for Artifact, I feel like I'm apologizing for an openly abusive system. But the weird thing about it is it just feels less abusive to me than.
So there's Tom apologizing for Steam. Yeah. You're apologizing for Artifact.
Valve Defense Force.
Welcome to the circus of Valve.
Oh, wow.
Ken Levine's really upset.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the business stuff. I still love it as a game. I'm really, really enjoying it.
I think there's something really missing in it.
What's that?
Well, in Hearthstone,
yeah.
you can click around and stuff happens. Fuck all happens in this one.
Can you be more specific?
Well, I'm thinking specifically of the little, dragony, demony, naked little imp fellas. When you click on their bottom, that should do something. Honestly, though.
That's just science.
Yeah. They look around at you with a sort of eager look, but it's not, you just poke their bottom.
It's not enough.
Come on.
The thing that makes
Come on, this is an interactive medium.
The thing I'm disappointed about, better. Alex, is
all those millions invested in
They will sell new little demon things, I bet. And I bet there's things that
with every interaction.
You buy the premium one, I bet there's things that happen when you click on their butts.
The thing that disappoints me, Alex, is you're entirely right. It is the biggest oversight in the game.
It's really strange.
In Hearthstone, you can tap the little gems out of the statue or whatever. They did well at that. No lying. No lie, they got it right. And I love the effects of Artifact. I find it very gratifying.
Water, there's all sorts, but it doesn't splash at you.
Yeah, it's weird because Artifact feels very tactile to me. It's got very lovely effects, and even just the way that those little imps lift the hinges of the Jumanji box open at the start. All of that. That's very nice. But yeah, it was also Pip's first instinct when I showed her the game was to click on things and click on the little bottoms and see if they do anything. So
they do look round, the one that's yours does. I don't think
they do. They react in a fun way to the game state. The animation's beautiful. Yeah. There's a brilliant look when you're if you're passing in a situation where you're fucked, but even because you have to pass or whatever, you get this look, which is perfect. Whoever did whatever animator had nothing else to work on. So it's I'm just gonna do this perfect side eye from a little demon man with his bum out. They really nailed it that Tuesday. But yes, you're right. You cannot then click on them, to get a further response. So what's the fucking point? Now I'm going to review bomb them.
It's pricing sort of 10% of the negative reviews, the other 90% of the bombs.
Let me click on the imp bombs. Gabe. Or Ice Frog. Or Richard Garfield. Whichever of the three of you it was or wasn't.
Scandalized. Any of you.
Yeah. Somehow this
You're
is
all going to take the shot for this.
Yeah. Maybe that was the thing. Maybe Richard Garfield went into the office. He's I've got this idea.
I've never animated naked imps before, he said.
Hey guys, I've got this idea for a card game and it's only going to work in a digital context. Why is that? Well, it's nothing to do with the fact that it takes place on 3 simultaneous boards. It's everything to do with the fact that I've been doing Magic the Gathering for 30 years and I've never been able to click on an imp's bum. Can't do it in Magic the Gathering. And it's gone on for too long, and Richard Garfield will change this. But then someone at Valve Fun Killers were no, the data horn says people don't want that. It's too personable. What you can see is you can look at the imp's arse, but you can't touch it. That's how we do things at Valve.
No touching the imp's arse.
You'll learn our company culture soon enough.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be, and don't ask the imp's name. Doesn't have one. And if the imp wants to leave and work on something else, it's the imp's prerogative.
Wheel their bum over to the next board.
Yeah. That probably happened.
Also.
But you guys have played some Artifact now, yeah?
I played the tutorial and then I played against the AI once and I won easily, and so I decided, perhaps unfairly, that the AI was non-functioning and I should quit forever. Cause I knew it wasn't really a game for me because I'm only interested in it single player, and I actually didn't think there was any AI at all until Alex told me, and then he forced me to buy it on last week's podcast. So I did. But now Alex tells me that the AI is not completely limp.
I've heard a lot of things about the AI.
I could be limp. It beat me roundly, but then I could be the limp one.
So I didn't know what I was doing in picking my own deck or their deck.
Did it beat you suddenly because you were just clicking on the imp's bottom?
I wasn't paying much attention to the cards, I have to say.
I was, like, in the game I played, I picked an all-red deck, because I thought to learn cards it might be better just to go all one colour. And I don't remember what I picked for them, I just picked something random from the list, which obviously could have been terrible, but perhaps I accidentally picked... Or perhaps I did pick a terrible deck for them.
I think the AI
I thought I was picking a terrible deck for myself.
Complementary one to the one you do.
I thought I chose what they...
You can choose. You can tell it, like, do a random blue-black deck, and it'll do that for you.
Right.
I was looking for, like, a just you decide button, but I couldn't see one, so I just picked a deck for them. But the reason I thought the AI was probably terrible was that, obviously I'm a complete beginner, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I multiple times just made massive mistakes due to not understanding how a thing worked until I placed it. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's the opposite. I just massively benefited the enemy and like, destroyed myself. And I still won, like, I think I played several rounds actually. But like, they didn't destroy any towers of mine and it was very easy.
So I've had, what I would say is if you went all red, then that's very, very aggressive. Like, and that might burn through like a randomly assembled deck that isn't built for like just punching in the face all day. I could see why you could end up in that situation, basically. I wouldn't say it was wholly representative.
Some of the things I slipped up on was things like I had a swap ability, which I'm always a big fan of in all games. And
was it the pull strength from one thing and give it to another thing? Or was it
no, just, I literally changed places with
swap positions
like an item that lets me do that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Face boots. Face boots.
I made a mistake with face boots.
That's
the same item.
If I understand it correctly now, the way it works is that if the person you're switching places with it is aiming like to their right, you will be aiming to their right when you switch with them. Like you sort of inherit their attack direction.
Yeah, because
I wasn't expecting that.
The attack direction is kind of a card that's sitting in the gap.
Now, after I knew that,
they show they're going down, but they don't sort of express it's still there. Yeah,
there's sort of this like hidden information. Well, it's not really hidden because you can see which direction everyone's aiming in.
But it is intuitive that it would take the same.
Yeah.
Turn.
There's also times when you could play a card in front of a opposition card and their direction changes without a card being played. I still understand why that happens.
In fact, facing is like probably the most advanced thing that like takes you a while to understand exactly how it works. There is a logic to it, but it's like maybe not that well expressed.
I also, because I played Magic like twice in real life and that's it. And I think I had trouble getting my head around in Magic, and then it's been long enough that I forgot it again. I had to learn it all over again with Artifact, and it still was counterintuitive. It's just the whole concept of blocking, like the idea that if there's something in the way at all, then it completely blocks your attack from getting through. And then obviously Artifact has like Siege, which gets around that to some extent.
Just trample Magic, I think.
There was like I did understand it. I did know that was the rule, but then I just kept forgetting in individual contexts. Like, oh, this is great. I'm beating this guy by like 17 points. I'm going to do loads of damage. Nope, doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because blocking's the game to a big extent. Like managing blocking, or if you're not going to manage blocking, you have to have a real good plan otherwise.
I also didn't understand, like, at the start of the game, not all of my heroes in my deck are on the board, right?
Nope.
When do they appear?
You get one at the start of turn 2 and the one at the start of turn 3.
Oh, okay.
And you plan that. So when you build a deck, you establish which 3 are in the first set, and then who arrives turn 2 and who arrives turn 3. So there's quite a lot of strategy in that. So if you have like, because there's interesting kind of, so if you have a deck that is multicolor, but most of your, like, let's say most of your red cards are 1, 2 or 3 mana, it makes sense to maybe go with an all red opening because you're more likely to have those cards in your hand in the first turn. Alternatively, you may have some crucial like improvements that have more value the longer they're on the board. Therefore you want someone of the appropriate color on the board faster, which is often the case for like maybe some blue cards. But at the same time, if you have blue heroes on the board, they have less health. They might just get murdered on the first turn. So there's kind of a game to it. It's complicated, Alex.
It's really
This is what you've got to be thinking about when you're not thinking about clicking on the little imp bumps.
I was overwhelmed as it was.
It's good. I like it a lot.
No, it's cool. I did like it, but I did find it. There's in the main menu, you know, I looked at, there's the managing the decks thing. And I think I was talked before about, I really don't have the patience to manage decks and to figure out stuff and look at the synergies. And I like to just to play, and they're obviously, in fact, you can totally just play because there are good decks that just come with it. But oh god, I just felt so fucking tired.
I'm having that trouble with Thronebreaker, the Witcher card game RPG thing, where like it just gives you a deck and it starts you out. You don't have to think about it. But then there's this camp, and at the camp you can kind of edit your deck. And the interface of doing it, I've looked at it like, I've gone back to camp like 5 different times and looked at it and just thought,
do you need to though? Like, does it, do you feel that you
certainly have to build your deck, I'm pretty sure.
Oh man.
But there's just like, there's a like bunch of cards. I just can't tell the most basic things, like which of these lists is the things I do have and which is the list of things I don't have. And which is like, cause there's deck and then there's like there's cards you have access to and then there's cards that are in your deck. And then there's cards that, I don't know, like one of the main things is like they're green but disabled. It's like, they're sort of like faded out, like they don't have their colors. And it's like green tells me I do have it, but faded out tells me I don't have it. Like, do I have it or not have it? And I think I figured it out now, but like the main screen that points you to with all these like cards, it looks like it's your deck, is not your deck. That's all the things that could be in your deck but aren't, but all of my cards are in my deck, so all of those are placeholders telling me that I don't have any more of the things that are in my deck, but I do have them. So it's just one of those interfaces that's just like,
You went back to Slay the Spire where
yes.
the cards just turn up and you make a choice as they arrive.
Slay the Spire is so good. I do resort to it in exactly those situations, like when I'm thinking like, oh, I've got these 3 different things I'm playing, like 2 of them really complex and interesting, and the other ones, well, Slay the Spire is complex, but it's, to play it, I play it on a gamepad, and it's just I press left and right and choose the choose button.
And things come to you.
Left, right, and yes.
You had the executive decision, but you don't have to fucking organise anything.
Yep.
What have you made of it, Tom? I know you played a little bit.
Yeah, I played about somewhere between 12 and 15 hours of it.
Dang.
Because I had a day off right after it came out, and I just played it all day. Just like solid.
Yeah.
Because it's really good. Like, it's really, really good. I think the starter pack is bad, actually. I think, so if it wasn't for an event that was running alongside the release of the starter deck, which gives you a bunch of predefined decks with loads of really exciting heroes and exciting cards built specifically for you, I'm not sure I would have persisted with it, because I think a lot of the heroes you get, the first 2 decks, the base decks, the cards you actually get, are pretty boring and tricky to play with.
Yeah.
But when you start playing with stuff like Legion Commando, it's like super powerful and get really fat and get, just wreck entire lanes.
What does Legion Commando do?
So Chris will know better than me.
So she has built-in retaliate, which means she does damage to you. When you hit her, you take damage as well as simply, obviously when cards hit each other, they both do damage to each other, but she does an extra 2 basically. So it's functionally a flat +2 to her damage.
Yeah.
But also she has good armor, good health, good damage, and her signature card is duel, which means it costs 2 mana, which is really cheap, and you pick a red hero and then get them to fight any other hero. And it's just a fight as if it were the combat phase, but it means that you can kind of get a jump on people, and
you attack twice. You attack again at the end of the
you can. So you could duel the person in front of you, and if it didn't kill them, you can then hit them again.
Yeah.
Or they can hit you again. And obviously, you potentially take damage from that because you're dueling them, so they hit you as well.
Yeah.
But there are ways of setting up stuff so it goes your way, and it's very gratifying.
Yeah, plus so you can select your target, so you can see your health value and their attack value, and you can just ruin a lane with it, because you can preemptively delete a hero that would obviously cause you massive problems. It's really fun.
And the key thing about it is that when it specifies a red hero, it doesn't have to be Legion Commander. So if you have a deck with Axe, which is another red hero, and they're also tremendously powerful, you can use Axe to duel people if you have Legion Commander in your deck. I was ill last week, which is why I wasn't on the pod, but I was well enough to sit in my dressing gown and play and stream Artifact, which is exactly what I did. And watch that for 2 hours of me saying, I'm fucked if they've top decked duel. And and sometimes they had, and sometimes they had not.
Yeah, the thing that kind of revealed itself to me is that it took me a while to realise that heroes come with cards like that, and that they often benefit. They're synergistic as well as benefit that hero in particular.
Yeah.
So you can have a hero that has kind of a crappy stat line and maybe a kind of half cool ability, but they're a bit like Zeus, someone like that. Zeus is got a board-wide nuke that's fucking amazing. So, it costs quite a lot of mana, 7 or something like that. But he just does 4 damage to every enemy hero on the deck. And the camera...
in any lane as well.
Across all lanes. And the camera switches to kind of like strafe bombing.
Oh yeah, they did that to me.
yeah. It fucking sucks when it happens to you.
What the hell is the camera doing?
Well, the camera just sort of sweeps across the line of guards.
Yeah, and then you see nukes coming
like
down, just lightning bolts, and they'll shake, and if it actually kills them, they'll sort of like disintegrate, spinning off into the universe. It's one of the... It is so choice. It's really deliciously satisfying when you do that. Especially when it just like clears a lane. I really like the tension of having 3 lanes that you're pushing and pulling. And I really enjoy just kind of like choosing when to just dump a lane. And it's like, well, that's done. They've invested loads of cards in there. I'm sure they don't have enough like town portal scrolls or whatever to teleport them out. They're stuck there. So fuck that tower. I'm just going to pour everything into these other bits and, just learn more and more about how the rhythm of the game works. I really like the game, but I can completely see why people switch off it. Because because you don't own any of the cards in those cool kind of starter event packs. You don't own any of those hero cards. And I was sitting there thinking, oh man, if only you just had like some of those cards I could just work in and start building decks with them. And there's no way to like just trial them or, own them for a bit or I don't know what I wanted really. But I just put 10 quid down and got some interesting cards like Winter Wyvern or something like that.
She's fun.
Yeah, she's got like, has some interesting abilities. And, I think I got like a pretty good card actually. She just adds +1 attack to every hero on the board.
Oh,
Drow Range? Not Drow Ranger.
So Drow, yeah. Oh,
Drow?
You pull Drow? So there's 2 things. Drow is like the ambient +1 damage aura to everything.
Yeah, I think
and very good signature as well.
And it's fucking amazing. Like that's just a great card and it's really fun because it just makes...
She's in the S tier club, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
club.
Yeah.
If you will.
It's really good. I really like it. And you can, I think it has a really interesting relationship with chance specifically. That like there are dice rolls just built in throughout the game. Like it's really chancy in a way that, so far I've found actually quite satisfying because I don't like the Hearthstone. I built my deck and either it does the thing it does or it doesn't. Do I pull my, mage nuke spell or not? Oh, well, I didn't. It's much more fun to kind of be like, oh no, shit, that's gone wrong. Let's try and rework things. But at the same time, I've had a load of games where I just didn't draw a teleport scroll and I feel like I just need blink daggers in a big red deck to be able to teleport strong people around, and if it just doesn't sort of happen, then that's obviously a bit frustrating.
It can be. I think I'm thinking at the moment I'm coming out the other side of that feeling. Cause I went through that in a big way, cause it can definitely screw you. And when I went there to talk to them about it, I pointed out the fact that you've got quite large decks and no mulligan. So the odds of you seeing all your cards in a given game is actually quite low. Even mad things can happen where you have got 6 copies of a card in your deck and you never see it, which in Hearthstone would never happen, even if it were possible, particularly in draft where you can double up on heroes and stuff. And Richard Garfield's answer was well, just look backwards in time far enough until you find the point where you could have made a difference. And it's well, thanks, Richard Garfield.
Get back to your imp bums.
Exactly. But now I'm sort of starting to partly I've been playing basically just Constructed, which is where you spend a ticket to build a deck and compete with that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And that has a luck element because occasionally you get someone who just got insanely lucky with their deck construction where it's Jesus Christ, you've got just S tier heroes. How the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
But that's rare. A lot of the time it's you have to make some interesting decisions about what you do and don't do. And there's a meta, but it's always imperfect. And that's where the best games kind of live. Good pop noise there, Tom.
I do enjoy coming up against a deck that just has, they've got an axe, and now how am I going to
play around that?
Yeah, how am I going to bog down that axe? What am I going to do?
You just kind of leave him to it. You just if you can stop him teleporting around.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there have to be limited teleports in the game. Otherwise it would just be a farce. Axe would just go around everywhere, or Legion Commander, you put a few items on her and teleport her around somewhere. There has to be the chance that they can't do that all the time. And I can see that it's just essential to the game.
I think, I'm at a satisfying point with it now where I'm starting to realize more of the mistakes I'm making. I'm getting better results, but also more aware of that was a mistake, but for some complicated 3 turns from now reason. The deck I just won with was a bit mad, but Kanna is another hero that I find really interesting.
Oh yeah.
Because she's one of the top tier. What she does is she's a blue mage basically, but she's the master of the dire creeps, the lane creeps from Dota. And when she is in a lane, the 2 random creeps that get distributed will always go to her. So it completely switches off that random element. They will always go to her. So if she's alive for a long time and she's got a decent amount of health, that lane will just fill up with creeps. But the problem is but creeps can be really useful because they block stuff in other lanes. So she lets your opponents know that you're never going to have free blocking in any other lane other than the one she's in. And so some people go through an initial wave of like panicking when they see her and like, God, gotta stop her because she's going to create this death lane.
Yeah.
But, maybe that doesn't happen. And then you get more experienced players who are like, control her a bit, but you can actually capitalize on it in other lanes. And it becomes really interesting for both players. But then I started to, I basically won all these games in this draft tournament because I got a little bit lucky and I managed to get 3 copies of a black card called Disciple of Nevermore, which has an interesting effect, which is it gives everyone in a lane +2 damage and everyone in a lane -2 armor, which means they basically take +2 damage from every source.
Everybody dies.
Everybody dies all the fucking time. But you can get insane damage out of this. So I would hold on to them for as long as possible, particularly if I had more than a couple of them in my hand. Wait until that canna lane had gotten like big, but not like mega scary, and then play them all to that lane. So suddenly all of her army of creeps are doing like 8 damage each. And I'm doing like 130 damage to the ancient, and there's nothing someone can do. So that's like that's the game plan, and you get there and you surprise someone with it. But then the step before that is do that in the leftmost lane. Almost always do it in the leftmost lane, and this is a really compelling reason not to. And that's because that's the one you resolve first. So it's like, even if people are like building their mega plan, because you have to sacrifice quite a lot to set that up. People are building their mega plan in the third lane, and you're definitely going to lose the game next turn, but then it doesn't matter because suddenly, they're just really drowning in dudes.
It's really subtle, the importance of that first lane. It's really interesting how, you always want something in operation there because it is vital and you can preempt people and stuff. It's really cool. There's some really cool cards in it as well that, again, aren't in the starter deck. There's a really fun one that it's a creep where it's got a special ability that just eats the things around it, and they kind of become absorbed into it, and it gains all their stats. And this is amazing because they can just become incredible, and it's got a disgusting effect where this black goo just kind of subsumes the stuff about it. But it's a great way to get rid of a hero out of a lane if you want to move them. I mean, it's got that extra thing where it's like, okay, put this next to a hero you might want to delete. If you don't have any town portal scrolls, use this ability in this sideways way instead to eat him, and then you can come back and redeploy somewhere else. And the game is full of that type of stuff.
Yeah, there's a really fun, cool. Revtel Convoy is like a merchant caravan where it has 20 health, which is a lot, like twice as much as even
is that the money hero?
Yeah. But its damage value is equal to half your current unspent money. Because it's basically just a load of merchants, and apparently they are as dangerous as they are wealthy. So if you earn loads of money quickly, you can play it, and suddenly people have to deal with it, but then you can completely destroy its value as soon as they've committed to dealing with it by turning it into items. And it's like, fuck you, you're just attacking a caravan now, dickhead.
And it changes in real time, that card as well. So if I've already got to buy some stuff, that caravan becomes shit now. So it just loses its value just as you,
but if it's not,
distribute it across the lanes.
Like no good items appear, you're like, well, I'm just gonna leave this caravan in this lane, just fucking people up.
15 strength. It's a relatively cheap card for the level of power it can get. Which is interesting.
Yeah. Oh god, I'm glad you like it, Tom. I was pretty sure you would like it, based on our shared interests in this kind of thing.
I used to play a lot of Magic as well, and I could see the DNA in it, but also how it's streamlined in a lot of ways, which is not a thing to say about a game that's been split into 3 different lanes and greatly complexified. But just I never liked the different mana pools. I never liked the fact you had to own a certain number of swamps or flaming pits in Magic to actually...
I just hate to own that many swamps. It gets me down. The admin alone.
The Hearthstone thing of just every lane ticking up and there being different power curves to different decks that kind of come online when they're 7 mana. That's a fucking cool thing as well. I really like it. It's really good. I'm going to spend quite a lot of money on it, I think. But I can see why people wouldn't. I think you hit a wall with it where you tried it and it doesn't have all the grabby stuff to bring you back. The heroes that you actually own aren't interesting enough, I think, to make many interesting decks out of, unless you have splashed out and spent 10 quid, maybe 20 quid on a bunch of card packs.
Yeah.
And also I think you don't have the expertise when you start to know what you even want to buy from the store. All these reams of kind of 20 cent cards, that's quite a big mental expenditure to go in there and actually pick out a bunch of stuff that you want until you've played the game a load and actually understand it.
I feel very lucky and incapable of reviewing Artifact because I spent a month and a half with every card playing in the closed beta. That taught me a lot, obviously, about the game, but it also taught me a lot about what I enjoy. There are heroes that are tremendously cheap that I think are hugely overrated because there's a tier list that has kind of gone around now, so people kind of know what to look for. Yeah. But there are cards that I just think are super interesting, but underrated, like Pugna, who's a little demon child skeleton, whose signature ability places a ward in a lane, and whenever you cast a spell in that lane, whenever your opponent casts a spell, it does 2 damage to their tower. And it creates this really interesting psychological effect where you can line them up and people sort of ignore it at first and then it kills them. And there's loads of stuff in the game that I really like that you only get through experimentation. So you're absolutely right that
more experimentation.
Yeah, I suppose that's what draft mode's for, kind of, is like you pay a ticket, you go in, you build a deck out of the entire sum of the cards in the game and you
see what happens.
But yeah. But even then, if you want to recoup your investment, you're probably going to be led towards the meta stuff, which means you're going to be looking at what people are saying is good and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I still don't know what I think about the monetization stuff. Even as much as I love the game, I don't know. If their ongoing events, the kind of rotating cards that are made available to you, are as good as the first one, I think that's kind of fine. Because I've treated it as a single player mode, basically. I've basically just gone through each of these. I think there are like 6 or 8 decks and they're really well themed and interesting and full of crazy cards. And just fought the AI and then fought real people with them. And that's been a quality 12-hour single player mode I've enjoyed. And that's justified the cost of investment for me already. So if they can keep that up, I think that is a way to create value for people.
I want to play it now. That's an issue. Alex, why don't you tell us about something you've been playing?
I've been playing Mutant Year Zero, Road to Eden.
I see.
Which is a XCOM-like tactical game, 3D. You are a mutant pig, a mutant duck. You can meet a mutant fox, and you're exploring post-apocalypse Sweden. So it's pretty good, I'd say.
Well, that's that. That was the basis.
Yeah, it's like it's a game based on a Swedish RPG. Have you heard of Mutant? Like
No.
The art rings a bell, so I must have seen something somewhere, but.
So it's been around since the 80s, where it was sort of basically like a cyberpunk kind of, RPG system. But it was kind of like a new edition came out called, Mutant Year Zero, in 2015 or 16 or something, maybe 14, the last few years anyway, which kind of reset the story. It used to be sort of set in cities and stuff, but then reset the story. So it was about mutants exploring the zone, and the mutants you would be playing as stalkers. So like, weirdly enough, they went to games, ripped a load of kind of post-apocalyptic kind of stuff out of one game, and now this game has popped up coming directly out of the RPG. So you are a bunch of stalkers. It makes some really it has very XCOM-y combat. So it's more or less the same interface, same kind of move and action or sprint and no action style setup. Its biggest kind of twist on that is the addition of or 2 additions. One is a real-time exploration element, where the world, like you're not in distinct levels. You are exploring a world of connected kind of areas, and the enemies and things are sort of wandering around and kind of around bases and sort of doing patrols in these areas. And when you go in, you're in real time, and there you can see them wandering around. And then you choose when you initiate the combat.
Right.
Or if you blunder into their sort of radius of awareness, combat will start, but with them taking the first turn. So there's an element of the game where you are engineering situations where you have the upper hand, and you'll need the upper hand because you're mostly very overwhelmed. You only have 3 fighters on your team at any time, and you're up against a lot of enemies usually. And there's a stealth element and a kind of so that if you manage to pick out an enemy, that's away from its friends, and you can take them out without them raising the alarm, you will be able to exit combat and then get another position, maybe isolate another enemy and whittle them down like that. But if you can't kill them on that turn, they will call for help. And you'll be facing everybody who is in the radius of the people that kind of get alerted.
Right. Oh, shit.
So it's got like a stealthy sort of alert system going on. And the other side, is this sort of stealth side, so that you're constantly popping in and out of their awareness kind of as you hide behind stuff and get out of the way, with lots of sort of bonuses to kind of critical hits and and accuracy and things that come with that.
You can hide from them during the combat?
Yeah, and I must admit, I finished it and I still don't know quite how it works because there's a symbol that appears over their head when they're not in stealth. The enemy doesn't know their position. And that will happen after their attack sometimes. It could sometimes happen when smoke's put down, which is completely invisible to completely obliterates vision for the enemy through it. So I'm not totally sure. So I never really used that too much. Mostly I used the stealth element of the real time, and moving into the tactical side. I must admit, even the sort of stealth kill thing that you have to do, you can't use a shotgun when you're trying to kill somebody in that turn because everyone else will hear your guns. So you've got to use stealth weapons. And there's a point in the game, and it feels like a balancing issue, where you literally can't do enough enough damage in a turn to take them out. I think you might be able to use stun effects on them to stop them from raising the alarm, but that's not everybody. You can EMP stun robots, but I don't know how you would stun like a humanoid character, like an organic enemies, without them being able to raise the alarm.
Are you trying to take out everyone in one turn?
No, just the ones that are alerted. So usually that's a situation where you found someone on their own, they're patrolling, and you want to chase them down, get rid of them, so you're sort of facing less later on.
Right.
But mostly by the end of the game, actually, I was using it more to get them into high places. So my duck, he's called Ducks.
Is that the game's name for him, or did you know him?
No, I would not have chosen that name. But I grew to love it, and I love Ducks very dearly. Ducks was my sniper, and by the end of the game, he had various skills which increased his crit damage, crit chance massive, doubled his crit chance when he was had a height advantage, and so he would pop up, get him on high, get him inside a window, get him on top of a kind of a little child's playground kind of climbing frame, all those kinds of things, and then use Bormin, who is the pig, and he is like the tank, and he has.
Is it spelled like BOAR?
BORMIN.
Missed opportunity, but okay.
Bormin. Yeah, so he's kind of like a tanky character. He has quite a lot of health, and he has a skill called Iron Skin, I think it's called, where he can shrug off all damage for a turn. And then I also used Pharaoh the Fox, who was good at sort of remaining in stealth. I was good at remaining in stealth because she has an ability to move between points that weren't visible to the enemies.
Teleport?
Creeping.
Okay.
No, it's not a teleport.
Is there a distance limit?
Not with that skill, but...
I call that a teleport.
But it acts like a teleport.
There was that game where you could teleport between any shadow, right?
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. What's that? Yeah.
Don't remember.
Recognise the name. Yeah, I recognise the idea. And so she would sort of go in, and she was about getting up close and sort of doing massive shotgun damage, from stealth,
Nice.
without them realising. It's one of the best things about it though is actually a subtle thing, which is that it's really good at making sure you have information. Well, so first off, the chances of getting hits are limited to 25, 50, 75, 100. So it's sort of 4-point kind of sort of variance of your chances. Cover, low cover gives you a 25% bonus. High cover gives you a 50% bonus. Distance will kind of do it in those sort of quarter chance kind of increments as well. So it's really legible and sort of easy to kind of deal with. when you're kind of hovering around, working out where to move, exactly what the hit chances are for every square.
Wow.
And the critical damage, thing. When you're taking a shot, there's a list on the side of the screen telling you exactly why your crit damage percentage is that. You know what crit damage you'll get if you do get one by the end of the game. And this is actually a criticism, it ups the ante toward, after maybe the first half of the game or maybe the sort of last third by just upping the HP counts of enemies, and you don't really rise that much, nothing like as much as them. Your HP is always about half of theirs by the end of the game.
Do you have any ways to sort of multiply and magnify your damage?
Not really. So you're pretty much limited to your best weapons kind of high, crit damage max. That's it. And so by the end of the game, most enemies will require everybody taking a shot and getting, probably most of them getting crit damage to take out an enemy, from scratch. And that did feel, there was a point at which that was pretty annoying. And then
think about in XCOM, you can, it's still pretty flat, but the best you can do is if your best ranger guy has the best shotgun you can give them and you equip them with a special kind of ammo that's really good against this target, then you can use their run and gun ability to get them right up to close to the enemy, so you have a super high crit chance, and then blast them for a really good amount of damage, and then you use someone else's ability to give them an extra action, so they act twice instead of someone else acting twice, and then you can kind of stack it that way.
Yeah. No, there isn't anything like that. There's no kind of pass off of turns or anything like that. It's more simple, which, I like the fact that it's simple, but you don't get to be super clever in this. It's about the setup more than it is the execution. I think it's about making sure you've engineered the best situation and you're using the environment well,
right?
And I misunderstood something about the game though as well, where it's really dumb in retrospect, but I didn't realize that it doesn't have permadeath. And there is an Iron Man mode, and it does say permadeath and you don't get to save. And I just didn't think about that. Therefore, meant that permadeath was in the game, because I went through the entire game not letting anybody die. You can let them kind of get incapacitated, so then you'd medicate them up, but then they would die, and I thought, oh my god, reset, reload. No, because they pop back to life again at the end
so
of the
you
game.
had a reverse Schindler's List moment.
Yeah.
Where you're I could have let all these people die. These fuckers, I spent so much time saving them. It didn't matter. They could have just died.
I replayed so many things because I thought I got myself into it. I kept thinking, so how would the narrative work? Because there's all these cutscenes with characters in and they're still alive. So how would they just not be in these cutscenes when they'd have been alive because that was kind of annoying, but so I actually probably put a bit more pressure on myself than was totally necessary. So I found it quite challenging. But the world you're exploring is for me, it was a really nice mix of, there's the cartoon weirdness of the fact that you've got a duck and a pig and stuff. And there's quite a lot of sort of jokes and things, and sort of, it's all quite irreverent. And I saw that, so it's made by a Swedish team. And so a lot of the references in the environments are Swedish references. So puns in Swedish of Swedish shops and things. So there's all that in there, but there's just skeletons and death everywhere. It's pretty grim. But then you go into a bar and there's a skeleton propped up with a bar with a pint, where it's died sort of thing. And then that's next to a kind of quarantine area where everyone's in bobby bags as well. And there's sort of lots of environmental storytelling with kind of campsites and poignant kind of playgrounds and things like that. But they're it's really there's so much detail, really surprising amounts of detail. You view almost everything from high up above, and then you sort of zoom in when you're sort of making a shot. But when you're in that view, you suddenly realize that shit, they really have put fuckloads. There's little kind of toadstools all around on the floor, which you can't see from any other angle. It's really pretty, and light shafts and sort of fog and that kind of thing. But it kind of stops really abruptly. I hadn't maxed out all my characters, and I'd barely used. You have 5. Eventually you have 5 different characters, but only use 3 in your squad, active squad. And I just hardly used 2 of them. And there's no end game. Like, the story ends and that's that. There's no regenerating enemies or anything like that. Once you've gone through an area, it's swept clean forever. So that felt curiously missing. Like, it felt like there should be an end game or something. You know, it's set up this idea that you're stalkers in this world collecting scrap for your settlement. But, like, you know, you just play the story and that's that. But I recommend it. Like, it's a lot of fun, and some tight tactical stuff, sort of weird stuff. The skills are fun. Like, you can grow moth wings and sort of fly and stuff because you're all mutants. And,
why not duck wings?
Good question. That's a very good question.
I'm sorry to have asked a question that wasn't possible to answer.
Yeah. That's a good question.
They would support like a humanoid-sized mutant a lot better than Mothwings.
Yeah. There is a human character that has that same skill, but she could
just
have
a human?
duck wings too. Yeah, there are 2 humans. Yeah.
Are those 2 you didn't really use?
Yeah. Boring.
Yeah, that does seem a bit
really boring.
Phoning it in. Yeah. After the duck and the pig and the fox.
What have you been up to, Tom?
I want to briefly mention Slay the Spire again, because I've been playing that a bunch in sealed deck mode, which is where you get presented with 30 random cards for that class and you pick 10, and then that's your deck for the game, which is, compared to a normal Slay the Spire deck, it's extremely small. That's a very, very small deck. And B, it's all good. Like, none of the starter cards none of the starter cards are in that selection ever. So you have no strikes and defends, which are the basic ones that just do some damage. They're the same for all classes, and they're just bad. Like, every other card in the game is better, basically. So basically it's easy mode. Like, it's just, you have a way better deck and it's small enough. But the thing that's really cool about it is it's letting me get at the kind of like really advanced stuff that I can't normally pull off, because there are loads of synergies that only work if you have a small enough deck. Like, this card synergizes with this card, but only if you can be reasonably sure you'll get it in your next hand. And if you have a deck of like 25 cards and 10 of them are just these dull, straight damage and block things, you can't be sure of that unless you get really lucky with like, the game offering you a lot of opportunities to remove cards from your deck. So for me, it just cuts out the craft, and I just get really quickly to a whole new interesting thing. And yeah, I'm just discovering so much more about combinations, and just like all those builds that I thought were kind of, it's not worth ever going for that. Now I go for it because I have such a big head start in getting it to work. So like, I've just recently realized that like the Silent, which is kind of the rogue class, they have, a power called Footwork, which just gives you dexterity, and dexterity is just a flat addition to all block you ever generate from cards. And they also have a card called Blur, which is a decent amount of block, and then you retain your block for another turn. And they also have a card called Dodge and Roll, which is like 4 block now and 4 block next turn. And those 3, obviously they all work together. Like, it's clear that those all help each other, but I'm just now realizing like, oh shit, these really help each other, because like, so if you have 2 dexterity, then you're getting 2 extra block on everything. The thing that used to be 4 block this turn, 4 block next turn is now 6 block this turn and 6 block next turn. So you basically get the benefit twice. And then Blur, if you're using that, it gets 2 extra block anyway. And it's keeping like, if you're not being attacked this turn, but you might be attacked next turn, and you have those 2 cards and you already have dexterity going, then you're getting, extra dexterity from Blur, extra dexterity from Dodge and Roll, and extra dexterity next turn, and Dodge and Roll's dexterity is basically counting, or its whole block is counting twice, because you're getting it this turn, and it's going to carry over to next turn, where it will stack with the delayed block that you're going to get from it that turn. And so you can just pull off like crazy things like that, where there's only 3 cards, and that can just be like part of your strategy, and then the other half can be like poison, or it can be shivs. And then just today I had a really weird setup where, like I say, that starts you on really good footing with a small, efficient deck of things that combo well. And I got right very early on in one of the very few circumstances where you can't choose whether to pick up a relic or not. there's an event where it's like reach for a relic and you get hurt a bit and there's a certain chance. And as you keep going, you get hurt more and more and the chance increases. And I kept doing that. And then I got Dead Branch, which is apparently one of the best relics in the game because every time you exhaust a card, it gives you a random card. Not one from your deck, just a random card for your class. And for like certain warrior builds, that's amazing. But for my build, I had some shivs. And I'd never thought about this before, but shivs technically exhaust. Shivs are like, there's a cloak and dagger card, and that gives you some block, and it gives you 2 shiv cards. And the shiv cards just do a little bit of damage, and they exhaust. And there are loads of ways to like build on those and make all of your shivs do more damage, and get bonuses for playing lots of attacks in one turn, which you can do, because shivs are free to play. But because they exhaust, every time I used a shiv, I was getting an extra card, and it was just fucking random what it was. It didn't synergize with anything else I had. And so every time I used a shiv, my deck got worse. And so I had this weird deck where like it starts amazing and then just gets shittier and shittier the more I play it. And that's just a weird consequence of like those two things interacting. I've never had that combination before. And so yeah, that's kind of changed the game for me. Like that is making Slay the Spire way more interesting. I'm just getting to all these strange combos I've never had.
Cool.
And then earlier tonight I played Just Cause 4.
Oh,
because that's out now. So I've only played like a couple of hours of it. It's weird. I bought it on PC, and then after 8 minutes with it, I refunded it on PC because I had so many technical issues.
Lovely. Like
the UI was displaying a different resolution to the rest of the game, and it was as if it was like 640 by 480, and didn't run very well. And then it hard locked my PC. I just had to turn the whole thing off. And I realized like this is more issues than I'm willing to solve. I'll just get it on PlayStation instead. So I'm playing it on PlayStation now. And it also, on both platforms, it's kind of ugly. Like they've done something weird with post-processing where it manages to be like grainy and flickery. So like distant stuff. I think my best guess is they had some issues with like where distant things would kind of have bad aliasing, where like it's only 1 pixel big, and so from certain angles it disappears and certain angles it's there. And so to mask that, they added some kind of film grain type thing, which is noise, just like visual noise on the image, but only on distant things. And that just looks bad. And it does flicker all the time, like things are jumping in and out of existence all the time, and that's on PS4 and PC, so it's a choice they've made. It's not like a bug. But other than that, it's Just Cause. It's grappling around and wingsuiting around, which is still great. Blowing up big red canisters, which is still great. And the new thing this time is balloons. They made a big deal of extreme weather as the new feature in this, which was utterly unexciting to me, and I haven't encountered any of it yet. But the balloons I have encountered, and this is, you can fire your grapple at something to like pull yourself towards it, or you can hold it down and tether it to something else. And now, when you tether it, you can optionally add a balloon to it.
I've got it. Just Cause for balloons.
They have gone deep on the balloons. Like the balloon system is the most involved and advanced thing that I've seen in the game. Because the problem with balloons, right, is that you don't necessarily want to put a balloon on everything.
That is the problem with balloons.
It's not ask any clown. It's not universally true that when you want to grapple to something, you want to put a balloon on it.
That's the opening of your Pride and Prejudice.
But they also, I think, didn't want to add an extra button, like a balloon button. So it has to be the tether, but you don't always want the tether to do this. So instead, you have multiple tether configurations, and you can switch between those with the D-pad. And when you get the balloon ability, the first thing you do is like set up a separate configuration for your tether, where with this configuration, every time you create a tether, the last thing you attach it to gets a balloon.
And you get a balloon.
Tom, please explain why you want balloons.
This is, okay, balloons lift things. That's it. Anyway, moving sort of on. It's not really, like there's even an early mission where your goal is to lift some things. And
Rodriguez, whatever his name is. We need you to levitate some pallets.
Well, no, the dumb thing about that mission is that's before you get the balloons. You use the tether to do that. You just chain it to the ceiling and it pulls it up. And then, after that, they introduce the balloons. Couldn't there be a better way to lift things? But you can the way you can configure these balloons is insane. I haven't unlocked all this stuff yet, but So right away you get tether loadouts, and the balloons are just one of 3 different upgrade slots. I don't know what the other ones do yet because I haven't unlocked them. But so for every tether loadout, you decide whether you want it to balloon or not balloon. If you do want it to balloon, do you want it to medium balloon, high balloon, or low balloon? And that I think is the strength of the force with which it lifts, not the altitude it goes to, because you can then pay to unlock, like they have some kind of upgrade resource, and you can spend that on unlocking not necessarily upgrades to the balloon, but further configuration options. One of which is what altitude you want it to kind of settle at. And so you can like pay to unlock, I want high altitude or I want low altitude.
But
and then at any time you can change the configurations of that. They've started, I know that you have not accepted this premise, but they've started from the premise that balloons are the most useful thing you could have in this universe because they've gone so deep on how you can configure balloons.
Their narrative design is going, I've been asked to design 100 missions that have to justify why he's attaching balloons to things at different altitudes.
Do you want your balloons to explode when burst or simply pop? Because they can be like full of explosive gas and therefore do damage when they blow up. Do you want them to be vulnerable to all kinds of damage, or do you want them to be immune to your damage but not other people's? Or would you like them to be immune to enemy damage but not your damage? Or would you like them to be invulnerable? You can make them invulnerable if you like.
This is all being done on the D-pad while you're kind of sailing through the air.
This is a
kind of
involved configuration menu that is I'm looking forward to exploring. Would you like your balloons to simply lift vertically, or would you like them to cause the things they're suspending to follow you, or would you like them to follow where you're looking?
Wow.
And so the last hour I spent with the game was fixing balloons to various big gas canisters that I wanted to destroy. And I'd set them, the first upgrade I got obviously was hey, make the balloons go where I'm looking. Because I don't know why I want that, but that sounds interesting. And so doing that, but it says where you're aiming specifically. And there's like the usual kind of iron sights type thing. You hold down left trigger and you zoom in. And so I was aiming where I wanted them to go, but because it zooms in so much, you can't see them anymore. Because they're like, your field of view goes so much narrower. So everything, and they're high up. So whatever you're doing, they're always going to be out of shot. And so it was just like me attaching like 10 balloons to a thing and then looking really intently at like a tree. And I needed like someone else in the world to say, are they moving? Are they doing it?
You don't dare look because you can reset where
if I look, yeah, exactly. They're not, well, now they're not going there because I'm not looking there anymore. Were they going there? Can you there, Rebellion member, can you tell me? Are the balloons going to the tree I'm looking at? That's all I care about.
But Rodriguez, why?
You have a gun. Couldn't you just shoot the oppressors?
There's no way to drop things on something else.
So that's been fascinating.
It's like Magic Grapple Man finally gets a hobby. Like, I'm real into balloons, it turns out.
You can, like, it is amazing. Like, they're super powerful. So you can, like, you know, a massive, like, radar dish that, that's part of a base. You can just attach 10 balloons to that. And then when you activate them, it rips it off its base. And then it's drifting around the base. And then you decide when to pop the balloons, obviously. So you can try and, like, get it when it's over something, I guess. I haven't successfully done that yet, but in theory,
that tree's gonna fucking die.
We're going to drop a satellite dish on a tree. I dropped a giant gas orb into the sea. I don't know if that's a thing that I was supposed to be doing. So like one of those huge, like building tall, metal spheres that contains gas, and it's very easy to rip it off its base, but it's quite hard to destroy it because it's just like heavily armored, I guess. So I just kind of used tethers to kind of pull it into the sea. Balloons did not lift it. They might have made it like easier to move, but they didn't make it float, because that would require a better kind of balloon, I guess. For some reason, I expected the sea to blow up the gas cylinder. It didn't. And when it didn't happen, I was like, well, yeah, of course. It's water. Why would it blow it up? But video game logic has taught me that water does damage, and that would work. I've done a few missions, because it's definitely one of those games where like there's a shitload of stuff that's locked off to me, so I'm going to do the critical path, I guess, until I unlock some things. And so far they haven't been horrible. Like, Just Cause has always struggled with missions, because when you restrict these kind of mechanics, they become really annoying. And also, like, every mission has some kind of NPC who mustn't die, and the whole game is about recklessly blowing things. And like, you fucking attach a tether to a gas cylinder, that is going to put it off its hinges, it's going to rupture in various places, it's going to shoot flame in multiple directions. Then when it falls, one of those jets of flame will be its propulsion method, and it will fire in a random direction. And you're encouraged to do this while you're protecting NPCs. So it's like, I can't tell you where that's going to go. I don't know when it's going to blow up. It's just, there's going to be some damage somewhere in this area. It may well kill those people. I can't really change that.
It's like the Rico Rodriguez solves a hostage situation moment where he's just staring at someone for a long time as a tanker drifts gently overhead.
Blocks out the sun and the shadow. Just
Actually, you joke, but that is how I've been telling whether something's moving, is looking at the shadow. Like, I can't see the thing itself, but I do see the balloon shadow. That's a balloon of some kind. Is it moving my way? I can't really tell because I don't know where the sun is, but it's coming. But yeah, I just had a mission to like steal a plane and then land it on an airstrip. It's strangely keen on getting to do things very carefully and safely. So I had to very slowly and safely land a plane, and not only land it, but like, taxi across the airport to the correct hangar to complete the next bit of the mission. And then, I don't know, did some hacking stuff. I didn't really follow it. And then it's like, get to the extraction zone with your NPC friend, Myrrh, and you're given the choice of like, she just wants, you need some kind of vehicle. So it's just like, get a vehicle and bring it over, and whatever you bring, she'll get in. And it's get to the extraction zone. And after a while of driving, like, you're in an airport, and the GPS thing, you know, it does these arrows on the road and tells you which way to go, is like wild. It's pointing in the opposite direction because it thinks you should only drive on the runways and not the grass between the runways. So I'm like, fuck you, I'm going direct as the crow flies. And then that was the correct call within the airport, but as soon as we left the airport, I started to realize I'm in very mountainous territory now, and it looks like the place I'm going is actually not on this island at all. And there's like a bridge between the islands, but the bridge does not start anywhere near where I am. It's like way inland, and we're being chased by helicopters and multiple enemy vehicles. And it gets increasingly comical for me to try and drive up this extremely rocky, extremely mountainous hill with Just Cause's wild physics where you flip at the slightest bump. And it's kind of biased so that it never entirely goes on its back. It always kind of rights itself, but we're in serious danger of falling off the cliff or blowing ourselves up. And I get close to the road, but there's just no way we're getting over these last few bumps whilst being chased by helicopters. So I get out.
Balloons.
No, there's no time for balloons in this situation. I can't be
There's no time for balloons.
There's one time.
You had
I can't be
balloons
staring
and
at
told
the
me it was
road
silly.
and waiting for my fucking levitated car to drift over whilst being shot by a helicopter. I haven't got the upgrade that makes them immune to enemy damage, so the enemies would simply destroy them. So I have to go and get a different vehicle and bring it to her because our vehicle is fucked, and it's like, I just need to get over this tiny little ridge. But every vehicle I steal, when I get there, the helicopter's doing like an area effect damage thing where it gives you like a big warning sign on the ground where it's going to hit. And the duration between that and it actually hitting is roughly the same as the duration that it takes Myrrh to realize that I've brought a new vehicle, get out of her vehicle and walk to my vehicle. And I have to be stationary for that because if I move, she stops registering it as the thing that she needs to get in. So we're just being destroyed again and again by this I bring the vehicle over, the red marker would appear on it. She would run over to it. I'm just sitting there helpless, like, well, I've got to wait because otherwise we don't get anywhere. It would attack, and then it wouldn't destroy the vehicle. It wouldn't kill her, but the vehicle would be on fire. And as soon as she sees it on fire, she turns around and goes back to the other vehicle. Well, I guess this one's scotched too. I'll go and get a new one.
What kind of language are you using? Were you kind of like resigned to it? Or
I think it was as entertaining as it was frustrating. Like it was.
Have you considered attaching a balloon to Myrrh?
I don't know if that works.
And just stare at that distant objective.
Delivered safely.
I should try it, actually. That's worth trying. Because I failed the mission, so I still got to do it.
4 hours of very slow drifting and looking intently peering.
Yeah, and just stay on my island and just look at the other island. Eventually you'll make it.
Unfortunately, he's only got 1,000 yards stare. It's a couple of miles away.
You can upgrade that range.
Yeah. That sounds dumb.
Yep. It's a silly game.
Good. I mean, you said you were enjoying it. Did you?
Yes. That was the implication, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I'm sure missions usually do get frustrating in Just Cause, and I expect they will, but they haven't done yet. And hopefully, I just hope that they unlock whatever goes in the other 2 upgrade slots for your grappling hooks, before that happens. And maybe some of those, actually, I think all of the balloon upgrades I can just get now, like, if I do enough, I don't know, missions to inspire the military. That gets me balloon upgrades, yeah.
Good. Shall we do some questions?
Yes.
All right, you've asked nicely. No, I asked nicely.
You asked nicely.
Shut up, Alex. First question comes from Chris, but not me, a different one, who writes, "Dear insert mumbling noises here, I mean, blah, 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 blah. Long ago you discussed Where's an Egg? The game about deduction and also murdering liars. I have since played it exactly once, gunning down the second person I spoke to and receiving the maximum medals, fireworks and Sputnik flyover good ending. My total playtime was somewhere around 6 seconds, but they were such excellent seconds I feel no need to go back. Has this ever happened to you? What's the fastest you've ever been done with a game, but in a positive way? Keep concealing those eggs, Chris, P.S. Toriel from Undertale would give the best hugs." I like this as possibly the best use of "has this ever happened to you" in a Incredible Question submission, and there's been a lot of them. But this enters as simply, "Have you ever finished the egg game in 6 seconds?" Alex?
Nope.
So,
Not that quick, but
I want to explain what the egg game is for anyone who's unindoctrinated.
I think Where's an Egg covers it.
Well, I feel like that could be like a hidden object game.
Yeah.
And in a sense it is, but it's a procedural detective game where somebody does have the egg and you can ask other people who has the egg, but some of them might be lying. And it's randomly generated who has the egg. And so, yes, it is possible to solve it in 6 seconds if you get lucky with a guess. I would suggest that this questioner did not rigorously sort through the evidence and come to a conclusive suspect. And perhaps due process was skipped over a little bit.
Do you have the egg?
If you're
Yes,
right,
I've got the
you're
egg.
right.
That's where that egg is. Dosh.
Was it Chris?
Yes.
You're loose cannon, Chris, but you get results.
I can't think of a gaming version of this, but it does remind me of a fireworks display that went terribly right and also wrong at the same time, where it was a vast fireworks display. I can't remember where it was, and it's been meticulously lined up to, respond to music, except something went terribly wrong when it was triggered, and all the fireworks happened at the same time. It just launched fucking all of them, and it's just like a nuclear explosion in the sky. And
6 seconds of utter delight.
They interviewed people afterwards and asked if they were disappointed, and they're like, "No, really
I'm
great."
really proud of all of us for dodging the obvious joke here. Oh, come on. Okay, wow, apparently. Fine. The readers will know. That's... Anyway, no, I don't think this has happened to me. 1 in 5, but I mean, there's
The only games where I've been done really quickly, but pleased with them, were not I'm thinking of 30 Fights of Loving is 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I think I only played it once. I might have played it twice maybe, but even then that would be half an hour.
I was thinking ridiculous.
But I loved it.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking ridiculous fishing, or those kind of incremental games where there's no need to go back because it's more or less the same kind of progression through, but it's just sort of very kind of rewarding kind of half an hour while you're in it.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is that sort of exuberant, I don't need to do this ever again.
Yeah.
Perfect. Nailed it kind of feeling. And I'm not sure. There's nothing really springs to mind. I'm sure there's been multiplayer games where I've done quite well in the first match ever and well, that's that then. Beat that.
I did win my first ever game of Slay the Spire, and it would have been kind of cool to just resign at that point. Yeah. Well, mastered this
100%
game.
100% win record.
Yeah, no, it's always a very brief disappointment rather than a brief triumph.
Even that life, though.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is the thing, man. Big Valve and the fact they won't let you touch a little bum. They're there saying, we don't want you to have too much fun in the first 2 hours because otherwise you'll refund it because you'll have had all the fun. That's the problem. That's where the egg's problem. Right there. You have all your fun straight away. They show you Sputnik. I think it's a free game. You're allowed to look at Sputnik. Probably just going to refund that shit straight away, aren't you?
I don't think Alex would stop touching the Sputnik. I think it would be at least 90 minutes of that, and No refunds.
Let alone if you figure out that you're just allowed to type Sputnik into Google image search. You can see all the Sputnik you like. Don't tell teens that. I don't know what I'm fucking talking about.
I don't know. Are these artifacts?
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar.
That's a
with
where's an egg
terminology.
joke, I believe.
That is a where's an egg joke.
It's referenced in the question. Well, when
Yeah.
you find the egg, there's the big celebration, and I guess Sputnik is involved. I don't remember this, but apparently Sputnik is involved.
Oh, right, you really did just think I was having some kind of meltdown.
Did you notice how polite I was about it?
It's exactly how you always look at me, Alex. There's no difference.
What's the confusion?
It's just like, I'm sure you know what you're doing. And I did. Thanks. Well, we found out where the egg is here, haven't we?
You're the egg. You're the egg.
Let's not
Eggiest.
fall out. Let's not fall out. James has a question. James writes, Dear Clinks and Clockwork, what percentage of Chris's enthusiasm for Artifact is rooted in adding a whole ton of lore to a fantasy universe into which he's already invested? And what percentage is a result of the cards exiting warp in the launch trailer? Cheerio, James. Kind of none of that, really. Like, genuinely.
Did you read the comic?
I did.
Was it good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've done our duty here.
It's very good at Axe comic, actually, separately. Dota 2's Axe comic is
Good, yeah.
funny.
Yeah. A lot of the Dota 2 comics are good. It's because
Yeah.
Valve's secretly good at making comics.
I didn't understand this comic at all, though, I must say.
The new one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's
one.
mad. The backstory to what Artifact is, from a lore point of view, is kind of great, but kind of nonsense at the same time.
Are they
that
suggesting
stuff.
that characters in the Dota universe are playing Artifact?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's changing fate or something?
Yeah, so the notion is that every game of Dota that's ever been played actually happened. So
All canon.
it's all canon, including different people being on different sides, etc.
Well, even when I played
God,
it,
that
and
one
it was
against
really
the
bad.
bots, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah. And
Oh,
the idea
no.
being
Ruined
like,
Dota's canon.
Yeah, I feel really responsible now.
when one of the ancients explodes at the end of a game of Dota, because that's how all games of Dota end, time resets. And all of history happens again up to that point. And so Dota is always the end of time, but who's standing where and what they're doing is based on countless tiny variables stretching back through history. And Artifact is a game wizards play in order to rearrange the elements of reality, basically, which is
Well, that adds up.
the kind of nonsense I'm into. So, like, I dig it, but it is nonsense, but it's fun, I think. And,
Funsense.
Funsense is it's the only kind of sense I know.
Gold, Funsense, and Myrrh.
We can tell which of the three kings was a venture capitalist. That's the thing. That's what you come to the Crate and Crowbar for. Just fucking tip-top startup ideas. Yeah, but no, also.
What was the no?
As in, I like Artifact a lot, but actually it's got nothing to do with really the lore or the... I mean, those things are nice, but...
Where is the
again,
lore located in the game, or is
in
it
the
just in the
cards.
comic?
Bottom
In the
left.
comic?
Each card has about... Each card has like a paragraph of text that's fully voiced.
Really?
Yep.
Where do you access that?
And the card collection page.
Oh, I don't want to go on there. Don't want to see. It's too stressful.
Let me... I can just imagine, like, there's like probably like thousands and thousands of words and hours of voice acting in that game. And you're just like physically pouring at the screen.
Trying to touch the imp button. But he won't go to the law screen.
It's like someone's written and voiced actually funny writing. But no. Ben Brode taught me that I could touch this. And I will.
When you have the law coming out of the imp bum, I'll listen to it. Before then, it's dead to me.
If I told you, like, some fucking my uncle works at Nintendo story, like, well, actually, if you're losing in a lane, then you can't touch the imp bomb. If you're winning, if you have lethal damage in a lane on the enemy tower, and then you right-click the imp bomb, you get the backstory, you'd have fucking believed me. I bet you would.
I would. Put me back in there. Right out of a drain pipe.
Oh, we have fun, don't we?
We do.
Good. Next question comes from Aidan, who writes, Hi. Sorry, he didn't cough, I did. Tom and Alex were discussing XP boosts in the last episode, and I wondered whether you'd heard Blizzard talk about how they came to the idea of rest in World of Warcraft. Early on in development, one of the designers thought that they should discourage players from spending too long playing the game. So they added a little ding that happens when you level up. No, discourage players from spending too long playing the game. So they added a modifier that reduced XP gain as you played. People did not like this. The designers went back to the drawing board and decided to instead double the XP you received for the first few hours, and also double the required XP to level up. The bright sparks listening will realize that this is exactly the same as the previous system, but phrased positively. People loved it, and the rest, is history. I could tack a question on here, but we all know it would be an afterthought. Love the pod, Aidan. That's a good
Wow
story.
fact.
Good wow fact.
Yep.
It's got a bit of wow.
Fact.
I have a sort of a related example from Heatsig where you kind of use the opposite logic, because when we had missions where we wanted you to like try and not kill anyone or try and not be seen, we would originally give you a bonus for that. So it's like the pay is 100. Oh, sorry, the pay is 50, and we give you a 50 bonus if you're also not seen. And people didn't really bother with it, and it kind of felt like it was the same as a mission where you weren't being rewarded for that, but with an optional extra bonus. It was kind of a minor difference. And so I changed it so that the pay is 100, and you lose 50 if you get spotted. And suddenly you care about it, and it makes much bigger difference, and people actually try and go for it. So by making it, I intentionally made it a thing that where it feels very negative and very unpleasant, because I wanted to push people to pay attention to it and take it seriously.
It's a good story. Good design moment. And it is, framing things positively. That's how you get people to do things.
Or it's like a system, like if the way you frame things, or kind of the semantics around a system are almost more important to the player than the actual kind of maths of it, which is fascinating.
Yeah. And
you're dealing with psychology there rather than the actual numbers.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I don't know. That I think is genuinely the root of my issue with like a lot of our decision making about Artifact. Like I think the system is on paper fairer, but they just didn't pay attention at all to what people's feeling is about what's being asked of them.
It really matters.
Got to think about feelings. Faceless obelisk.
No.
Oh, Val's here with us now.
Throw a bone into space. Do it. Go on. I wasn't paying attention to that movie.
That's pretty much it.
It's
That was
fine,
it.
yeah, you don't need to follow it.
Sorry.
Obelisk, bone, AI, baby, space baby, and
Finn. Yeah.
great movie.
Oh, fuck. I want to tell a story. It's completely fucking irrelevant. Has anyone seen the Jason Statham vehicle, the Meg?
Yes, I have.
Not yet.
Right. What did you think?
It's terrible.
It was terrible, yeah. It vastly under-delivers on its promises for Big Shark.
I had to see it in Exeter.
That's the worst of it.
Holy shit.
But, so, there's a lot of things that are wrong with that film. There's a lot of things that are wrong with that film. It under-delivers on Big Shark action, which is its only job.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It also, it's really clear that it kind of just wants Jason Statham to be The Rock, and Jason Statham is not The Rock. There's many charming qualities to Jason Statham, but he's not The Rock.
He did fight The Rock in the Fast and Furious movies.
He did. But he's not The Rock.
Yeah, point taken.
And, that wouldn't be possible if he was The Rock. And it would have been better with The Rock, but he's not in it. So that's the thing. But the thing it does that really fucking pissed me off, and I just watched it on a plane, and I was so angry, like I wanted to leave, but I was on the plane.
That's a shame.
Is they fucking, I think I have a particular hatred for jokes that were obviously funny to the writers at the time, and this is the vicarious hatred that you reserve for a family member, because it's something you relate to profoundly, but that makes it somehow less forgivable. Like, it's like, oh god, you assholes, you went for it. The movie ends, you know, whatever, shark problem momentarily dealt with, etc. And the credits roll, and then it ends on, in old-timey cursive font, Finn. And it's like, you fucking assholes. Nothing else in that movie is that tone, right?
That's sort of levity that none of it. Like it's this clodding.
Like there's none of that. It's
film.
not a silly film, really. Like, well, it is silly, but it's not trying to be like that. And it's like that is a cutting room floor kind of gag. That's a 4 p.m. on a Friday, and we're writing the credits kind of joke. You cut that stuff when sanity returns to you on Monday morning, and it didn't. And it made me angry, and I'm sorry this is irrelevant to the topic of this PC Games podcast, but I wanted to get it off my chest. It's not a good film. Everyone.
You probably are the only person who's seen that though, because I don't think
the end
people have
credits.
gone through.
Yeah.
What if there's an after credit scene?
I was waiting for the after. I wanted to see if there's an after credits scene in the mech.
Maybe Nick Fury shows up.
Well, Chuck comes back.
I thought, they tease a big old squid at the start of the film, and I was like, I want to see the big squid now. Just show me the one scene where dealt with the big shark, and then it's like,
no,
shit,
there's
a
a big
fucking
squid
tentacle.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
Goes to show. So I imagine Jason Statham saying, shrugging at the camera.
It's an unbelievable film, and that's saying something about a movie where it's just about Jason Statham riding a little submarine chase. It's
30 quid it cost us. Exeter.
Alex is still mad about Exeter.
It basically feels like the Subnautica movie, but bad. It has all the vehicles from Subnautica in it.
I would like some not a good movie, but good.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested in making that.
And if they do that, they're allowed to end it with Finn, but only if they,
you have to earn a fin.
You really have to earn a Finn. You have to literally be a French film. Or you have to pull off that, you have to earn that shark gag.
We should set up some sort of board with the fin board where you have to kind of apply.
So I think that should be true of any 5 p.m. on a Friday joke. I think there should be a panel of other people in the same situation who are like, nah, leave this.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Or if it is allowed, you get
that's called
license.
editing, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, speaking of unedited 5 p.m. sort of garbage, let's continue this podcast. Next question is from David, who writes, I enjoyed your answer to Bullock's question about the ethics of actions that we take in video games from episode 261. To build off this earlier discussion, I'd like to know why you think so many games struggle to move past violent verbs. Why is violence so popular? I know Tom F. has already partially addressed this in episode 2 of his Game Maker series, Shooting, Therefore Video Games. But I'd definitely like to hear more. I'm currently enjoying splatting goblins and the like and unexplored, so I'm not trying to claim any sort of moral high ground. But I think it's an important issue for games to address. As a follow-up question, what verbs do you think are underrepresented in games? Thank you, by the way, for giving me an idea for a game that I might actually see to completion. My own ideas tend to spiral out of control into levels of complexity that I'm not prepared for. But the Tom S/Chris/Tom F improv game concept idea, you are a tree, oh no, you must sprant, has given me Transprant, a game where you've already died at the beginning of the game, and a tree has grown out of your character's corpse, and you, now as the tree, must seed your consciousness into the bodies of creatures that come nearby, so you can try to run them back to your family and communicate what has happened to you. Take care, David.
That sounds great.
But if you're the animal, how do you communicate what happened?
The time-honored Lassie method.
All right, I died and there's a tree through me, but in dog language.
We all know that seeds contain knowledge. Do we?
Seeds of knowledge, that's a phrase, so it must be.
Therefore.
But you put the seed in the dog, and then the dog then contains you.
Does the dog sick up the seed?
I don't think it comes out of that
It's your dad!
It's a tiny homunculus.
Circle of life.
This is tangential, I guess, but is a fruit the only thing that wants to be eaten?
Unfortunately, with the lamentable changes made to Tumblr, yes. What do you mean, like?
If you look like a lettuce leaf, the lettuce doesn't get anything out of it. Lettuce is fucking, Jesus, why do you do that? That was part of me. The lettuce doesn't, reproduce through that. But anything with a seed is trying to get you to eat the seed, and the fruit is there to make you eat the seed. Like, the fruit wants to be eaten. It wants you to eat the fruit so that you... I think you take the seed elsewhere and share it out
It's
somewhere.
Interesting, I mean...
But like, animals don't want to get eaten and
what
leaves
about
don't
nuts?
get eaten. I don't think... A nut is a seed, right? But by eating it, you kind of crunch it to bits and it doesn't get to reproduce, I don't think. I hope they don't.
I mean, so you're defining want here as is the purpose of, right?
Yeah. It's a fuzzy definition.
And we should certainly get into this.
Certainly. There's no reason not to.
It's a good question, but I mean, yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, well, partly isn't that the definition of a fruit? Is it contains seeds? So therefore, and seeds are distributed by being pooped. So there's not really anything else that's like, you know, it is. Well, it's also
a fruitarian. Is that someone who literally only eats fruit, or do they eat fruit and
I
vegetables?
think they only eat fruit.
So is that their logic? Like,
Maybe.
well, fruit's here to be eaten.
Yeah, that could. Yeah, there is logic there.
What's that sinister fruit that the flesh grows around dead wasps, or wasps crawling in? Oh man,
Oh, figs.
figs.
Yeah.
There's really good
Sinister, the sinister fig.
The figs are sinister. There's this game idea reminded me of a news story recently where a man's dead body was discovered thanks to a fig tree growing out through.
Oh my
I
god.
heard this. Yeah, this is cool.
And it's full of wasps.
And yeah, full of fucking bees. Oh no. No, it was, this fig tree was just completely out of place in this landscape. It was growing out of this rock, and so they followed it down, and they found the remains.
They were that suspicious of the fig tree.
Well, it was just really
what the fuck
fucking
is this
weird.
fig tree
Really
doing
weird.
here? I am digging this up right now.
This fig
I'm
tree
having none
killed
of
the
this. There should not be a fig tree here.
We're not a busy police department.
This is the most suspicious thing that's happened here.
Bath police department on a very slow day went into the moors.
Ever since Marsh stopped chopping people's feet off and...
I know, they've been so bored. But they traced it back to the remains of a man. Turns out he'd eaten a fig and the seed had gone into his belly, and
Wow.
he'd been killed down there. But the fig had fed off his body and turned into a tree and stretched full sunlight, and he was discovered.
Figs are hedging their bets, aren't they? There's like 1 million seeds in those things.
Oh yeah, yeah. They'll take no chances.
And it paid off in this case. It's a success story for the fig.
Exactly.
Hero fig.
solves crime.
But that fig was a tree. Oh no, and it might
Sprout.
It sprouts.
Oh, masterful.
There we go.
Oh, God. The question was about which verbs are underused in games, or why violent verbs are overused.
Not enough spranting.
I was reflecting recently, like, about how good Subnautica is, and for some reason in my head I had filed it as a non-violent game, and then I remembered it like, no, actually,
There's a lot of knifing fish.
totally stab some fish in it. But it's interesting because, like, it isn't really a combat game, and I remember they specifically took a stance on, like, there are no guns in this game intentionally.
There are torpedoes.
Right. Are they like,
They're
The
stabbing
guns of the sea.
torpedoes.
are they like explosive torpedoes? Like,
Yeah, I
kill
think
things?
so.
Explosive.
I thought it was all like sort of EMP things that like
Yeah,
zap
it is kind of like
and
shock
stun.
guns, shock torpedoes and things.
But it did occur to me, like, there is violence in both directions. There's you stabbing fish and there's fish eating you. But there isn't a lot of, like, I felt like, at least when I played, each individual case was like, either they're gonna kill me or I'm gonna kill them. There's not like, combat is like, ooh, it could go either way.
There's not like, there's no point where you have to like, fucking like wrestle a manatee or something. You're like, just die, and it's really like evenly matched.
Yeah.
You see the kind of brutality of real violence between.
And you
each of
don't
them.
really, presumably you don't really go out looking to kill stuff. You're just doing
Yeah,
it
it's usually
by necessity.
there's no upside to it except for those very small fish where you're just doing it for food. And there's just, the only ones where I felt like I ever had like a fight against them was there's those scavenger ones to pick up the metal. They're not scary enough that you can't take them on, and they're almost annoying enough that it's worth sometimes fighting them off. But, and they're not prey. You don't get food from them as far as I remember. But other than that, like everything else was just like, I don't want to tangle with that at all because it's worse than me, or it's tiny and it's food, so I do want to stab it.
Yeah, and I think also because creatures run, if you spook them, you solve the problem of the creature without actually murdering it, which is, what a good game that is.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't have any problems with the violence in that. Like, I play mostly violent games, and it's always in the back of my mind that, like, this isn't good.
Right.
Really, we shouldn't be fantasizing about this relentlessly. And it would be nice if there were more games outside of that. I mean, the question of, like, why there aren't is, they just aren't as popular.
Yeah.
Because people don't like them as much because people like violence. And there's definitely, like, more work to be done on the development side of, like, we can make more interesting games about these things. But I think, like, at least 50% of the problem is that people don't want those things. Like, people want to kill things and enjoy violence, more than perhaps they should. But yeah, there's shitloads of non-violent games.
People want to, like, triumph over conflict, right? Like,
yeah, that's the thing. Is there a clearer win state than winning a fight? Like, just clearly and quickly, like, there's little to be explained about two people who try to shoot each other and one wins.
Yeah, cause there's challenge games and non-challenge games, and there's violent games and non-violent games, and there's a very, very big overlap between challenge and violence. Like, if you're going to make a challenge-based game, it's way easier to make it about violence because we have loads of good mechanics for that. And, again, you totally can make non-violent challenge games, and people do, and some of them are huge. Like, Tetris is a non-violent challenge game. But they don't scratch the same itch. And if you're not trying to make a challenge game, then it's really easy to make it non-violent. Probably most non-challenge based games are non-violent. Most walking simulators are non-challenge and non-violent. Nope, that's the end of my sentence. I thought I had a third thing, but no.
In terms of verbs, though, that's interesting. I quite like the verb to deal. And I was playing Imperator Rome last week for a preview. And I've always felt a bit let down by grand strategy games and diplomacy and doing deals and creating consequences for reneging on deals and for creating balances of trust. One of the only few games that's done it well was Neptune's Pride, which is obviously between real humans, and that's all about deals and betrayal, and that's just human drama and not really down to the game specifically.
Yeah, I loved it in Galactic Civilizations 2. I got a huge amount out of that game, and it was largely because of the AI and the races that you are in the galaxy with. They all felt like they had their own personality, and a lot of that came out through the trade system because it was, a conversation in which you can offer something and ask for something, but what you can offer and ask for is not just like individual ships and individual planets, but, peace treaties and war treaties. Like, if I give you this planet, will you attack this enemy for me? And all of that is just treated as these commodified goods, and they all have some kind of value to the AI. That heavily depends on their personality as well as their, like, rational assessment of what it's worth. And one of the reasons it was so good was that you didn't have to actually offer the deal seriously to find out whether they would go for it. You click on things to say, yes, I'll offer this and this and this, and I want this and this and this, and it would go red or green depending on whether they're amenable to that. And I think you even saw the line of dialogue they would say if you offered it. You were kind of offering it in a very abstract sense, but you didn't have to go through with it. And so you could just I would just try, like, I'm trying to, like, I want this one technology from you. You know about this one weapons technology, and I want it from you. And I'm offering you these 3 other technologies and 1,000 billion credits, and they're still saying no. And when that happened, I'd be like, what if I gave you every planet in my empire, my entire military, every technology I know, and all of my money, and they're still saying no? It's like, that's a personality thing. Now I know something about their character. Like, that's really interesting. It's like, okay, that they're not overvaluing this technology. They just hate me.
And that is all of the questions we've got time for this week. If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode, you could do so by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com or by tweeting us at crateandcrowbar. You can find our website at crateandcrowbar.com, which is also where you'll find a link to our Discord. And you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/crateandcrowbar. And as ever, thanks very much to our Patreon backers. You can find out more about supporting the podcast at patreon.com/crateandcrowbar. If you would like to follow us individually on the website twitter.com, you can do so if you must. I am at C Thurston, that's CTHURSTEN. Tom, who just necked a big mouthful of rum, is
delicious as it was too. delicious Kraken. Anyway, enjoy Twitter, everyone. Alex, what's your Twitter handle?
We didn't say it.
Oh yeah, but I don't even use it anymore.
Fair enough.
PCG Ludo on there.
Okay, yeah, you don't have to say it.
You can look at all of his old tweets.
The only thing I've used Twitter for in the past month is to moan at a chicken delivery place for being rubbish. That's what Twitter is to me now. So
If you'd like to subscribe for that kind of content.
don't expect fireworks on there, folks.
Especially not loads of fireworks all at once.
Unless I find out that GIF and post it.
Or
You got to do that now.
Yeah, I do.
Just pin it to the top of your profile page and leave it at that forever.
That's a good exit.
Yeah, exactly. Alex?
I am rotational, ROTATIONAL.
By God, he's done it again. Tom?
I am at Pentadact, PENTADACT.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Oh, I forgot something.
Oh no. We can't undo what we've just done.
Thanks for continuing to listen, everybody.
Fake ending, everybody. I thought I might use this moment to set up some expectations for the rest of the pod year, given this is our first episode in December, and we've sort of figured out what that is.
What if everyone's turned off after the fireworks explosion?
Well, they don't get this secret reserved for...
It's just for you people if you're still listening. It's just for you.
So, as ever, we are going to be taking a break over Christmas, but the plan is as follows. We will have 2 more episodes after this one, normal episodes this year. One will be a normal episode, and the other will be our year in review Game of the Year podcast, as we traditionally do once a year. And we may even try and film that again. We've done that every year for the last couple of years, and that's been nice. We are also going to bring back C&C D&D, as I think we mentioned before, and that will be returning around Christmas time. So look forward to that, and look forward to the D&D debut of one Mr. Alex Wiltshire. I gotta write that. So yes, those are plans over Christmas. If you are wondering, then we'll be gone for a couple of weeks, and we'll be back in January. Miniatures Monthly listeners should wait for an announcement when Tom and I figure out when we're going to have an evening free to record that.
Indeed.
But yes, and now that I've ruined it by interjecting before the previous one, let's do it again. Thanks for listening, everybody. I think that was